What's up, everybody? Welcome to the DOC, the Duel of Concepts YouTube channel. I'm Issa Queen, and today we are talking about just having a Black state of mind, what it means to have a Black state of mind. This will be like a little off branch of my conversations with Issa. Those are coming back soon. Um, uh, as always, thank you to Rep for helping me out with the audio. Thank you to Angie, who's also come aboard to help me out with the audio. Zula Concept has been growing, y'all. And I'm very excited for what's coming up this year with the Zula Concept. Just a shameless plug, you can find me on instaqueen.com, where I got merch, I got my videos, my links, all those different types of things that I'm doing in my real life, as opposed to things I don't talk about on Bigo. With that being said, I wanted to have this Black state of mind conversation because I feel like a lot of the time we have different ideas on what the Black state of mind is and what it should be. And in my perfect world, I feel like it's more of a collective state, but you know, I'm gonna base my perceptions down on reality and realize that Black people aren't a monolith. So I would like everybody to answer what they feel like the Black state of mind is, what it looks like, how it shows up in your life. And this can be politically, this can be economically, this can be relationship, like any way you want to take this conversation. All opinions matter. I'm not going to say you're going to be free of judgment because these are grown folks up here, but I would love for everybody to keep it respectful. So with that being said, does anybody want to start us off?
I'm happy to kick it off. So one of the topics that came to mind when you mentioned that title, right, Black State of Mind, is how do we reach the people that are not on this panel, right? I appreciate this panel and all their wisdom. However, you're technically not my audience, right? If I'm trying to build a collective, I feel like this particular space is fun, it's great, but how do we reach the ones that are not here? I'll take my seat.
No, definitely. As much as I feel like Beagle is I almost said a curse word. A Beagle is an insanity asylum, a sane asylum, if you will. I can't deny that I haven't met some dope people up here. And I have made some great connections with people up here that I'm actually using in my real life. So as much as I know we playing in the special needs class sometimes on these panels, as much as I feel that way, every once in a while I do run into people who are basically a lot of the people that's sitting right here, who I feel like we can have these conversations with, that we will be able to take it into our real life, so we can be able to connect with the people that we're actually trying to connect with. But that's just, my little 1, 2, 3. Anybody else? Go ahead, Saida.
The Black state of mind, I would say, and I'm speaking for Black Americans. If I was to say what a Black state of mind looks like, to me, it looks like people who care about their environments, their communities, care about the voice of the people and what that looks like, who's speaking for us, who's rallying for us. And so I think that's what the Black state of mind looks like. And here we are representing for Black people at all times, but I think we do need more of the collective to represent for Black people talking about Black issues, not so much religion or personal ideologies, but what we're going through as a collective and how we can change that. That to me would be a Black state of mind, the Black American state of mind. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, well, don't all
go ahead, Ron.
once.
What do you think?
No, I was going to say don't all jump at the mic at once. But for me, the Black state of mind has to do with, first of all, how I identify from being a daughter of the diaspora that is rooted in Blackness, that is not necessarily originated here, because both of my parents were born in Central America, but we are very aware that we are the Black people of the Isthmus of Central America. But also having been raised by an American descendant of slaves since I was 2 years old, and that being the really core of my family, because that is who I was here with. Most of my family, in relation to my mother and my biological father, are in other places. And so because of that, my lens is fixed on that experience. And I embody that in the work that I do as a goal, even on a personal level, like even with choices that I make, whether it be career wise or even education wise. And like when I think about solutions that I want to create, they're all fixed on that lens of what I feel has happened and what continues to happen and how change can be brought. And to me, that's my Black state of mind.
Yeah, I love both of y'all two answers. I would definitely relate with it being more outside of just our our race. I do believe that it is our connection to our environment just as much as our Black community and things like that. And it is how you identify with yourself, right? This, and also I feel like how we connect with each other as well, right? Even though I do feel like just because, Balboa's parents is from Panama and my parents are from here, I don't necessarily feel like her her experience might be, different, but how the experience made us feel, how we recognized it for what it was, I feel like all of those things are still the same. So we do have this connection between us that's based on just how we are treated within, the societal structures, whatever. Fellas, it's on y'all. I always appreciate y'all for letting the ladies speak first.
Well, I'll speak because I know I probably got to roll out in a few, but I think the current black state of mind is that a lot of more black or melanated people are searching for answers than ever before. And with the access to technology, you know, I think that, yeah, we're going to run into difference of opinions, areas of research, whether it be in STEM, whether it be outside of STEM and be into the holistic approach. Um, but, to me, it's just a beautiful thing to even be here and on a panel because 20 years ago, this shit didn't exist. And 20 years ago, a lot of people weren't talking about the black state of mind. Everybody was trying to just live and make it more so. So it's good to see the progression of the melanated culture, whether, nobody else sees it, but I see it, because I lived it and I'm living in it and I lived it to the point where I've seen our grasp of knowledge grow infinitely in over, let's say this last 20 years. Um, so, with that being said, it's going to be a lot of confrontations, it's going to be a lot of conflicts, it's going to be a lot of everything. But at the end of the day, the black state of mind is, just treat each other with respect and dignity. And, as long as we can do that, we can always come from there. So, that's all I believe the black state of mind is today, regardless of, you know, current situations and plights.
Peace, y'all. Yeah, when I think about the black state of mind, I think about all the in nature that we have. A lot of times when we have to, improvise on the spot to reach a goal or a task, and we kind of have to make something out of nothing, we usually call it being ghetto. And I feel like we do ourselves a disservice when we apply innovation and ingenuity, and we call it being ghetto, right? Because that is exactly what it is. It's innovation. It's us being innovative, right? It's us applying our ingenuity. Oftentimes, we had to do these things to make ends meet, to make lemonade out of lemons, while we were in impoverished positions in the ghetto. So I think we also reduce our Black state of mind and our greatness when we negatively label certain shining aspects of our Black state of mind with these negative pejoratives like, oh, that's ghetto, just because we had to, put things together and improvise in the moment just to make ends meet. And I feel like, another good representation of our Black state of mind and that innovative nature that we have, right, is our use of language, the concepts we preserve in our syntax when we say, hey, yo, it's time for us to establish a Black state of mind because you know what time it is. When I say you know what time it is, I'm not really signaling for you to look at your watch, right? You know what time it is when I say that means something else, right? We know it's more of a call to action. It's more of an affirmation of the action and the sentiment that we feel at the moment. That's a representation of the Black state of mind, right? More innovation. We don't just put on a baseball cap. We turn the baseball cap backwards. And then if we don't like that, we get bored, we're going to turn it to the side, right? And make up a new word to represent that. And I feel like that also is reflective in the many dialects and ever evolving slang, quote unquote slang, or African American vernacular English that we speak, right? And you can see that reflective all over the world, right? With the numerous languages and dialects preserved in Africa as well, reflecting that innovative use of language in Africa and here in the Americas and wherever Black people are all over the planet, right? We're not just going to jump up and shoot the ball in the basket. We're going to jump up and slam dunk it. Then when we get bored with that, we're going to jump up and put the ball between our legs and do a windmill while doing a 360, right? That innovative nature that we have, that Black state of mind manifests through action. So I feel like innovation and creativity is one of the main things that comes to mind when I think of the Black state of mind. That's why we make soul music and soul food, right? We don't just walk, we also added a bop to it, right? Because the study was done to show that Black children develop the proficiency of walking faster than any race on the planet, right? We master walking at a faster pace. Our children walk with the proficiency of an adult faster than any race of children on the planet. All of this is reflective of the Black state of mind, and I love and appreciate it. The big part that I want to get to is how do we propel the Black state of mind into excellence? And how do we preserve the Black state of mind through our actions and genetically with the people we choose as mates? And that's a conversation I would really love to have. Peace, y'all.
Well, you spoke a word. You definitely went all around in the conversation, all the places that I definitely want to go within this conversation. I think the only thing you didn't name was Black names that I freaking love, all my Shaniquas and LaQuishas. But with that being said, Napa Knowledge Rep, does any y'all want to, you know, have anything to add or subtract or comment on that you already heard? The floor, y'all could just take the floor when you feel the spirit.
Yeah, no, I'm actually just coming as a student, just to, look, listen, observe, and respect. You know what I mean? That's all I'm coming as right now.
Hi, Giovanni. Thank you for coming to the panel. Yeah, if you want to just listen for right now, like I said earlier, we were talking about the Black state of mind, what that means to you. You could take that anywhere you want to take that. It's really just about your opinion. What's up, Unity? What's up, Satan? Welcome to the panel. Um, Caddy, give me 1 second. I'm gonna ask if Napa or Rep want to add anything really quickly to see.
No, I'm gonna go with the flow. I'm gonna wait.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right. Go ahead.
yeah.
Don't be napping. I'm gonna tell you that right now.
I mean, look, man, like the black state of mind, like I love what all y'all said. I can't
Do
help
your
but think
thing.
about all
Speak to
I
it.
can't I can't help but think about all the negative things though as well. You know, the modern black state of mind, like what's the 21st century issues that we're dealing with, you know, over religiosity, extremism, anti-scientific, pseudoscientific, you know, perspectives of history. Like we're completely distorting history, completely changing how we look at history in this country, in this world. And I think that takes away from a lot of our, not, it doesn't take away, but it's definitely a growing trend that I see, not just on Bigo, but like all across the social media, all across the diaspora, especially with African Americans. It's kind of like this distorted perception of our time here in this planet, in this country. So I'm just hoping that we could shed those shackles of extremism. Yeah, shed those shackles of extremism and over religiosity and magical thinking. You know what I'm saying? That's my hopes for the black state of mind going forward. Go ahead.
I'm glad actually that you brought that up, and that's kind of the conversation I would hope for us to get to, because there are things, the nurture aspect, right, that degrades the black state of mind, the nature of the black state of mind. It gets damaged by the nurture aspect of the conversation and these influences that we have, right? The social structures that we're in and how we've responded to them positively and negatively. So I think Napa brings up a great point for future things in this conversation to identify what risk factors and what bad behaviors we are currently practicing that damage and compromise the black state of mind. And I think Napa did a great job of pointing out things that have compromised or behaviors that we exhibit that show how compromised our black state of mind is.
Caddy, it's on you, and then we're gonna go to you, Knowledge.
All right.
Okay. Okay. So, I think this is where I get a little bit sideways with most people because I think the spirituality conversation is a conversation that always gets us out of the progressive part of the conversation, meaning we get stuck in the minutia around talking about spirituality, maybe even some religion, and now we're not actually doing anything. We don't have any actual calls to action. I think it's important, right? I think it's important to say that yes, we are this big, powerful being of human beings on this planet, sure, but what are we currently doing with that power, right? What are we doing with that power? And I don't want to talk about what our ancestors did because we are not our ancestors. We are currently alive today in 2025. What are we doing in 2025 to make meaningful strides within our communities? That's the conversation I want to have. I'll take my seat.
It's on you, Knowledge.
Yeah. I pretty much agree with Caddy. You know, I think that's really the problem right now. I think we got all these different things that's keeping us from progress, from religion, history, you name it. You know, there's a lot of stumbling blocks that's been put in place to keep us against each other, keep us arguing with one another, bickering with one another, and we're not really coming up with enough solutions to the problems. Um, for us to have, for me, you know, I look at it like we have to really start focusing more or less on things we agree on and not things we disagree on. It's just like right now we in the middle of a battlefield going to war, and we both got an enemy in common that's trying to destroy both of us. I mean, they attacking us biologically, they're attacking us in every way possible, and meanwhile, in between time, we up here arguing and fighting and bickering and stuff like that. So it got to be to the point where we start applying ourselves and stop focusing on trying to Because my thing is, I think a lot of times too, we forcing our perspectives on everybody else, and everybody is not gonna see shit the way you see it. So instead of doing that, why not find things that we have in common and build on that? Because I mean, I do that shit in real life. Like motherfuckers that, like certain people I know I can't talk to them about certain shit. Like my aunt, for instance, you know, she like real big on Christianity. You can't, if you say anything against Christianity, she about to go, oh, thou. She be like, get beneath me, Satan, and she ain't trying to hear none of that shit. She about to block all that shit completely out. So I find common ground that we do agree on shit with. You know, so the problem with us, I feel like we try to, like, you know, things that we try to focus on things we disagree with each other on, and it gets us nowhere but a dark space, and it just continues and it perpetuates. You know, we need to really start focusing on things we agree on as a community, and that's the only way we're gonna be able to move forward. Or it's just gonna continue to be separation and a bunch of people arguing and bickering and not getting shit done.
Yeah, I do agree with that. And I also feel like we got to learn how to be okay with upset, right? We got to be okay with me and you disagreeing. We had a heated conversation, but leaving it at the conversation. And I
Right.
feel as though we constantly, especially in these conversations about spirituality, like literally it's a conversation about you and your relationship with God, and we're about to just argue about that. I think that's the weirdest argument to have. But I think that we are still living in this tribalistic ideal of survival mode, right? Because of how we are being nurtured. Well, how we're being nurtured within our environments, not just our household, because a lot of the times we act like our households is like the buy all end all, but like in all reality, your kid is going to spend a lot of time outside, whether they're going to school around other kids, like after school programs. Other kids exist, other things exist, so we have to be okay with understanding the differences, understanding that in an argument, in a disagreement, there is a decorum. Like we got to go back to the rules of engagement within our own brothers and sisters between us, so we can start to break down those walls of all of this disagreement. Go ahead, God Energy.
I completely agree, you know, about setting up certain rules of engagement with each other, certain, social boundaries and social norms that we have amongst each other, to facilitate our progression, right? Because we need to get more involved in civics, right? We need to start getting more involved in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Because when we do look back to these, those of us that are not very religious, yet we do look to history, right, as some sort of reference, as some sort of ancestry for us to kind of, connect to something aside from the oppression we feel. We look back to these things and these peoples because we feel they were great. But what made them great, right, was them excelling in STEM. It was their mastery of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics that made these people great, that draw us to admire them, right? It was the mastery of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics that helped them produce these great wonders that still are around today that we marvel at and awe at, right? They will leave you so awestruck that they will make you think someone from outer space must have built these things. That's how amazing and so much of a testament to human greatness that they were. And I feel like we miss that, right? We get so caught up in romanticizing that we don't let that inspiration fuel action. And history is supposed to be used as a playbook to inform your current actions. And if we are not using history to inform our current actions, then history is distracting you, right? So I do feel like we should establish a code of conduct with each other. We should establish some sort of solidarity similar to, people like the Jews and things like that when we get into religion. These peoples have a cultural narrative that uplifts them, right? Gives them a sense of direction and give them a sense of uniformity with each other. And a lot of nations do that. They have national epics and heroic epics, right? To unify their people, to bolster their morale, to give them a sense of pride and self-esteem so they can master civilization. And because we are in this position of being the conquered peoples, being oppressed, because we are a conquered peoples, right? And I think that is something that needs to enter the Black state of mind so we have a better context of our existence. We are a conquered peoples, but there are things you must do and things you must not do to overcome that. And we have to establish that amongst each other. I'm gonna land my plane with this. The analogy that I like to make is that the Bulls and the Celtics, when they get on the court, they compete against each other and they do everything they do, right, to score in their own basket. Now, do the Bulls think that the members of the Celtics are evil people? No. You can play for the Bulls and completely acknowledge that there are members of the Celtics team that may go save puppies and orphans on the weekend. That doesn't change the fact that I am your fierce competitor, right? And when we get on this court of civilization, it's my team against yours. But that doesn't mean I hate you. That doesn't mean you have to be less human. That doesn't mean you are a Celtic devil, right? But the point is, it's my demographic, my team against yours. And all the training and efforts that I put in before we faced off, I'm going to apply all of that to this competition that we are in. And never do you see the Bulls and Celtics face each other and say, why are we doing this? We're all basketball players at the end of the day anyway, right? So that is just a loose metaphor, a loose analogy. No, it is not one-to-one, but there is enough correlation for you to get the gist of my message. And I hope we opt to be star players for our own team instead of trading that to be water boys for someone else's team. Peace, y'all.
Beautifully said. Go ahead, Caddy.
I think Jeff was before
Box
me.
3. Yeah, box 3.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jeff. I didn't even see you over there.
Nah, it's all good. It's all
Yeah, I
good.
thought you dropped.
Yeah, I did. I got a call, you know. But I was around to listen, and this is the thing where it gets murky at, because you got the logical side of things and you got the theoretical side of things. And I remember a quote saying, if you write something down, it's left up to be interpreted by people who don't know your intent to interpret it the way they see fit. So all these great ancient civilizations that you speak of, God energy, and everybody else speak of, they also have a theoretical saying that they wrote down. Whether you believe it or not, that is up for debate. That's why you have people who still practice voodoo and not Christianity. You know, these things that you're saying, I get it. I understand where you're coming from. But you also have a different side of things and a theoretical side of things. And these same cultures that you speak of, they also speak of deities. They also speak of people coming here, sentient beings coming here. They also speak of extraterrestrial type shit that can't be explained. Even if you don't talk about it, it's still written and left up to the person who reads it to interpret it. So at this point, what I'm saying is that I get where the logical side stands at. I get where the theoretical side stands at. But at somewhere in the middle is a common ground, because just because you're saying the logical exists and you can't say none of the theoretical don't exist, because the same people who gave us all this technological inventions, they also believe this same shit that they was talking about aliens coming down here. They also wrote about it. They also kept receipts and documents and everything else about it. So why is it so hard fetched for the logical and the theoretical to mesh. That is the point. That is the point of junction where I think a lot of times a lot of good people get crossed up because they wrote and did both things. This
I feel like that was the exact thing we said we were going to try to stay away from in this conversation for the sake of forward progression. I think we should move on and keep to the civics aspect and the solution-based conversation. Peace, y'all. I think it's on Caddy.
That
Okay.
wasn't nice.
No, it wasn't.
That wasn't nice.
Not at all.
But what I will say is that if that's his black state of mind, I understand. I'll talk to him later about it. Go ahead, Caddy.
Yeah. So, while I didn't agree with everything that Jeff was saying, right, I do understand what he was saying. And what he was saying was simply that we are trying to combine two ideologies into one and make it a productive conversation. And here's what I was going to say, right, because that wasn't really my position. Here's what I was going to say. It's it's fascinating how we keep putting the cart in front of the horse, in my humble opinion. We continue to have these dialogues about really high level thinking, and we need our body of people, not the people on this panel, our body of people to master the absolute basics before we can move into what we're talking about. Meaning, master our wallets, master our reproductive parts, right? Master the simple civic engagement that God was talking about. Master those things, master the laws of your land before we can get into any of this other minutia that we're talking about. That's what I came to talk about. I'll take my seat.
So, start the conversation, Caddy. So, what exactly do you see in any of those areas that you want to talk about?
Sure. So we can talk about the single parent rate in the Black community. We can talk about how we consume, and are very poor with our budgets. Right? We're not a poor people, regardless of what the media wants you to think. We're not poor. We're not broke. We're none of those things. Most of us live above the poverty line. And so when you consider that, why are we always struggling to get above and get ourselves into economic positions and actually start to create generational wealth? Why is it so hard for us? Every other body of people in this country has figured it out. And we continue to sit on the sideline and holler about past oppressions and suppressions as to why we can't succeed. The reason we can't succeed today is our own fault. I'm not saying there's no systematic oppressions against us. I'm not saying that. I know there is. However, the biggest culprit in the conversation today is self. I'll take my seat.
Yeah, I did raise my hand too, Queen. I don't know if you've seen it or not.
I'm sorry, hon. You're
No, it's
right.
all
I'm
right.
sorry. I just wanted her to elaborate on what she was saying. You were supposed to be after her anyway. But go ahead. It's on you. And then Bow, you're after
Now,
now.
if I'm gonna let Balboa, I'll let Balboa go, then I'll go.
Okay.
So I feel like an issue that I have is everybody dictating everybody else's lane, what everybody else should be focused on, and just not allowing. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't have, obviously, this conversation about what would be more productive, what would be best practices, right? But the reality of it is, like, even when we're talking about the wonderful things that were done in Africa, the wonderful things that were done in Egypt, was it all the people? Or was there a collective of people that got together and did great things? And there were some people that didn't, right? And I'm not saying we shouldn't uplift those people. That's literally the work that I do, is trying to help the rising tide lift as many boats as possible, right? But when I say that, I say that some of what we assume, like I hear a lot from people like, well, we can't do this until we do that. You shouldn't do this until you do that. This is the only thing that you should focus on and nothing else. And I don't think that that's a reality. The reality is there's different people that exist in different lanes. And that, for instance, there are people that may have been broke their entire life. And we've heard about the people who died broke, but they had an amazing impact doing it. They did things that were extraordinary and brought great change. And yes, they still died broke. And I'm not saying I'm speaking against upliftment economically. It's definitely a need. And I also feel that if we did uplift ourselves economically, we could get more done because it would remove certain barriers, right? But I don't think it's a this then. I think it's a this end. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like if we embody that more, we will achieve more. If we take on a perspective of like, let's get it all on the table. I also don't agree with like the ideology of like, oh, just tone in and focus on one thing. Having in my past life been an executive assistant, been an administrative assistant, being an office manager, I have watched CEOs, vice presidents do so much in their day to day, right? That most people that I have these conversations with assume that they should only be focused on the one thing when they're focused on like 20 things in a day. They just have a good way of organizing that and tackling it, right? And they don't all fit in the same bucket. I feel like what we need more than anything is that knowledge of how to do more effectively so that we can meet the goal, because the goal is big. The work that's on the table is plenty, right? And it's only if we come up with strategies that we allow people to exist in the lanes that they have the capacity to, if we recognize that we are capable of being greater than we allow ourselves to be in the terms of focus and ability, we're not gonna get it done. We're not, in my opinion.
Indeed. Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with your sentiments when it comes to that. If you just think about how the government is ran, everybody in the government don't see shit the same way. You know what I mean? But they come together as a collective and they focus and tackle on things they agree on. You know, so even when you said that God energy about different teams when it come to historical and all that stuff, I don't really think we different teams. I think we on the same team fighting each other, acting like we on a different team. The problem is, you know, what I see is that, like you said, we're a conquered people. So being that we're conquered and we know we was conquered, we was lied to for so many years. I'm gonna be honest with you. I was always quizzitive, and I think the black state of mind got to become more quizzitive, man. We can't just attach to something and then just be like, that's the be all. We got to stop doing that because we've been a conquered people. So that means we got to continue to study. We got to continue to learn, but we cannot let history say, okay, well, if you don't believe what I believe and you don't believe the history I believe, that now we can't move forward as a people. I mean, do you really think the people that came and conquered America, you think they all on the same page? You think they all see shit the same way? You know what I mean? Like, do you really? Like, no, you don't have to see shit the same way to conquer some shit. You don't have to see shit the same way to come together as a unit, as a force. Even if you think it sounds like it's a business, everybody ain't a dishwasher. Everybody ain't a manager of that motherfucker. Everybody got different positions that they playing. They all working for the same company at the end of the day, but they all got different positions. So yeah, we don't always have to agree on the same history to come together as a team or a unit. You know, and those are just stumbling blocks. If you think about religion, that's the biggest thing that keep us divided as a people. And not just religion, sexism, classism, racism, all that shit keep us divided. So it ain't nobody got to come in and throw our ass in no chains anymore. We throwing ourselves in fucking chains, bro. You know what I'm saying? We throwing ourselves in chains. They don't need to come and say, come on, round niggas up and beat us with whips anymore. We whipping our motherfucking self. We fighting against each other. And that's why I say a lot of times the problem is, and when I look at the black state of mind, is we got to start finding ways to be able to, work together without even, finding things in common. Think about your family members. Think about people that's in your life right now. Do you agree with all of them? Are y'all always in agreement with every fucking thing? Hell, fuck no. I guarantee you, everybody that's on this panel have some discrepancies with people in their family. But the ones you really love, you still work that shit out, and y'all focus on the shit y'all can agree on. That don't mean we ain't from the same team. Just because we
Come closer to your mic, hon, so we can hear you a little bit better.
Oh, I said that don't mean we. Oh, did y'all hear me or y'all didn't hear me? I was not
No, we
faded away
heard
the whole.
you. We heard you. You were just
Oh,
far
okay,
away.
okay,
So I was
okay.
just telling you to
Yeah,
step
yeah,
up a little bit.
and even when you kicking JFF out, bro, I think you should have gave the man a little time to speak, cause he really not a bad dude, bro. You know what I'm saying? And that just shows that right there. Like, look how we treat each other. You know what I mean? Like, that's not good, man. We shouldn't treat each other like that. That's why, you know what I mean? With me, I'm trying to bring us together as a people. You know what I mean? Yeah, I may believe how I believe, but that don't mean like when somebody come around and I feel like they Pan African, I'm like, you know what? Fuck you. Get the fuck up out of my life. I don't want to hear that shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, now we gotta, in the black state of mind, we need to start learning how to be able to just respect each other and love each other, and regardless if we have differences or whatnot, we shouldn't use that as barriers. We shouldn't use that shit as walls. You know what I mean? Conquering and dividing is the devil. And when you look at how how they destroyed us as a people, what did they do? They conquered and divided us. So anything that teaches conquering, dividing, and division ain't it. Anything that's teaching division is not it. And that's all I'm gonna say. I'm gonna land my plane there.
Peace, y'all. Economically, we have, over $1 trillion in spending power as a community. And our amount of wealth that we have, it outdoes other nations that are competing on the world stage. We have more money than some nations that sit at the UN. So when our brothers and sisters say that we stand in our own way, we definitely do. We fund our own oppression, right? And we enable things that lead us further and further into the grips of our oppression, into us being conquered. And I do know that spending habits, a code of conduct that we have with each other, that would lead to a code of conduct. I think that is important. And I could see how, looking at this, one can be bitter, one can be angry, right? One could be fed up looking at the potential that our people have and seeing it squandered, because we have access to the education that we need. We have access to innovate and create independent systems and structures for ourselves. We have the ability, right, to address all of these personal things amongst each other socially, right? But we also have the ability to impose an order. And I do feel like on this app, we have seen plenty of times where we are in conversations and there is an element that comes in and throws everything off. We call them trolls and blase. But I also think it's important that, we use these conversations to empower action. And when we just have a go around of saying, this is the problem with Black people, and this is what Black people are doing wrong, and we're too into religion, and we're too ready to argue, and we say these things, and then when the opportunity comes, we fail to take action. And I think that's a lot of the frustration we have with each other. Most of the people up here have expressed, right, a frustration of hearing us constantly talk about religion and talk about history, and right, most of the panel actually just got done saying that. And I think we're absolutely right with that, right? But I also think we should get used to imposing an order amongst ourselves. We don't regulate our own communities. We're out of practice with those types of regulations and enforcing consequential thinking amongst each other, you know? So I can see how, with the lack of these things, our economic competence, our lack of order with each other, how, we can become bitter and angry and frustrated towards each other. And I think the lack of self-love and cooperation that we have with each other, should be addressed, which is why, when we get argumentative and we hone in on certain things to argue about, to bring our personal beliefs into the conversation, I think some sort of order should be brought back to keep us focused on the destination we are headed towards, to, promote upward mobility of our people. Peace, y'all.
Yeah, I agree with you, bro, but you could have gave him a warning though, bro. You know what I'm saying? I agree with you saying, but you ain't even give him a warning. You just kicked
There's
him,
a
bro.
order. There's an order, and I kind of wasn't, directly speaking to your point, because I don't want this to turn into an argument like he was making it about ancient aliens, because that's not the point here, right? So again, in the you know in the spirit of moving the conversation forward, I chose not to argue with someone who was choosing to argue with me, because the argument thing is what we all just said we're trying to get past and move on to progress. And I think someone
Yeah.
else's hand was raised, and I think it's on someone else whose
It's
hand was raised. Can
it's
we have an
on
order?
it's on Val. I got you. I got you. It's on Val. Go ahead, Val.
So, part of the difficulty that we face is this, right? In conversations, we have a position, we work in proximity to it. It's something that we've been thinking for a long time. It's something that we've been told for a long time. And anyone that enters the conversation that has a difference is targeting that, or that's how it feels, right? But everybody has a different experience, right? Or a different belief in association with certain things. And it's hard because I feel like I never wanted to be about being antagonistic towards anybody. But when you have something to add to the conversation and somebody's already said something, you can even feel like this is about to be something, right? But hopefully in this conversation we can make it not be that, right? But so I just want to say, in regards to the poverty line, the poverty line is literally a difference of $1. And I bring that forward to put in the conversation that when you have a belief about something, the nuance, especially amongst Black people, is so important, right? The idea that somebody shouldn't be talking about racism because we got to get beyond that, but in that person's world, if they are working in proximity to that and they're pouring over numbers that are relevant to the racial divide, it matters, right? And it also may matter to the person that disagrees that's important, but they don't know that because that's not their experience. That's not what they deal with on a regular basis. They don't know, for instance, that the government right now is doing something that's disproportionate to Black people, right? Or disproportionate to specific groups of people or to the diaspora, right? Because that's not their lived experience. So if the policing that's happening in the moment is such that it limits the ideas of the people that are in proximity to things, then I don't think we're being effective, right? But I also just wanted to tap on it in regards to the poverty line. The reason why I brought up the difference of $1 is because that's a population that I deal with all the time, right? Which, on paper and in statistics, yes, it'll say, well, only 20% of Black people are below the poverty line. But what does that mean in application? That literally means that somebody who may have gotten a certain amount of unemployment puts them $1 over what the person that's eligible for food stamps would have been, right? And now they're not eligible for any of those benefits, and now they have to subsist just because they got an extra dollar. And I would assume that we all understand that that doesn't mean that they're any more poor because they got $1, right? And so when we have these conversations, we have to be honest about what's really being experienced by us, so that we can overcome what is happening, right? Even if that is speaking to legislation that looks at it that simply, right? That looks at, oh, well, if they got an extra dollar, then we don't consider them and we don't want, when there's nothing for them, right? But also the fact that even if they had $100 more than the person in poverty, is their rent $1,000 more than that person that's in poverty? They're more poor than that person. We got to look at the nuances. I land my plane.
No, beautifully said about. I actually forgot what I was going to say from before, so I'm going to just keep on listening. But just so I can bring Mr. Kuche up to speed. For one, we are recording. That's one. This will be broadcast on YouTube. And right now, we're just talking about the Black state of mind, what that is to you, what it means to you, and what it means politically, economically, relationship-wise, any way you want to take it. Uh, right now, we're about to go. I believe Knowledge wanted to say something. What's up, Hakeem? If you want to join the panel, please join the panel.
I was
We're
gonna
gonna
say
go to
peace and
Knowledge.
blessings to the panel. Now I was gonna say peace and blessings to the panel. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. I'm glad that you came. Everybody's perspective is warranted.
Indeed.
With that being said, we're gonna go over to Mr. Kuche, and go ahead.
All right, hey everybody. All right, so describe the describe the general state of black mind, or my individual, like on a generality of like black
Yeah,
people, period.
yeah. For right now, generally speaking, because you just walked in, and we do have a list of names coming up right behind you. So, but I did
Oh,
want
okay.
you to be able to quickly say, what
Oh,
do you think
definitely.
the Black state of mind like? Maybe a quick minute, and
Just
then we're gonna go back, and I'll
yeah,
put you on the list.
yeah, just disengaged from each other, from politics. You know what I mean? Economics, just disengaged. Like, you know what I'm saying? If I could give a general, or a one word description. So,
No, yeah, that was a word that we didn't say yet, engaged. And I think engaged is very important because there's so many of us that are opting out and disengaging every single day. So I think that's very important. Um, it's on God Energy, then Caddy, then Napa. Go ahead, God Energy.
Peace, y'all. I just wanted to restate the analogy that I was making because I think it got misinterpreted about the team thing. The analogy was, so the construct was representing black people being the Bulls and white people being the Celtics, and us being able to respectfully compete against each other, and black people feeling comfortable with the idea that we have to compete in society, right? We don't have to dehumanize the other team. We could acknowledge that the other team possibly saves orphans and puppies on the weekend. So the construct that I was building was black people coming together as a team representing the Bulls, not black people being divided into two different teams, being the Bulls and Celtics fighting each other. So I heard that the analogy that I made was kind of misinterpreted or misunderstood. So I wanted to just clearly state it, be plain with it, that my analogy about the basketball teams meant black people as a collective should work as a team, as the Bulls, to compete on the world stage, because that is how the world stage works. And us as a conquered peoples have kind of been removed from that, right? And that is what makes us different. That is why other ethnic groups and races look at us weird, because we do not act in our own self-interest. We do not act as a team. And I understand the social structures that went into that, what happened to us, and why we are trying to buy smiles from all of these other peoples. Instead of circulating the black dollar, we try to give our black dollar to the Arabs and the Spanish and Gucci and Fendi, because we are trying to buy smiles from these people instead of competing, which earns respect, right? So I just wanted to clear up that analogy. Peace, y'all.
It's on you, Caddy.
Yeah. So I'm not sure why I get so much pushback on my ideologies, but I do. But I'll go ahead and answer to them. So when I say things like we're not poor, it's simply because we're not. And I don't. It's the conversations like this that get stuck in the nuance that prevent progress. We had a whole diatribe about what was nuanced around poor people versus not poor people, and we still don't have a solution on the table. When I said that we need to master the basics, in no education program in any part of the world do you jump from 2 + 2 to calculus. Not one. So why is what I'm saying getting so much pushback on this panel is beyond me. We do need to master the basics before we can have a bigger dialogue. We have to. What that basic looks like is a whole lot of basics, but we haven't mastered any of them. I'll take my seat.
Napa, it's you, hun. We're
Okay.
going to Napa, Mr. Kuche, and then we're going to Bow.
Mr. Kuche. Yo, is my background
Mr.
out?
Kuche, okay? No, you're fine. Your background is fine.
Okay. So I'm here. It's hard hearing y'all, but I think I get the gist of the conversation. But so I love studying different civilizations, history, different social structures and systems, right? So one of my favorite systems is Islam, not from a spiritual perspective, but from just a theological, philosophical approach. And they have a lot of concepts that I like to share. They have one called riba. Riba is interest, right? Riba is considered haram. Riba is usury, it's exploitation. It's just immoral to put interest on people. And this is what keeps cycles of poverty continuous. And it concentrates wealth towards, a very small minority when we have interest and stuff like that. I always think that concept, along with zakat, an obligatory charity that everyone is supposed to do from the highest to the low, kind of keeps this equilibrium in the community, in this sense of charity and peace and unity. Ideally, it's never going to be perfect, and every civilization is different in the Islamic world. But they have these really cool concepts that I think they emphasize a lot. Another concept is called asabiya. Asabiya is racial or group pride. And when you have a strong asabiya, a strong group pride, that's when you start seeing real good development. You start seeing real progress in your area that benefits everybody, even the people that aren't necessarily in the group. So I think we can take concepts from whether it's Islam or the Soviet Union or whatever era, Harlem Renaissance, European Renaissance. And usually any of these renaissances and revolutions, it's a small minority of people that come up with these concepts in small groups, and then the rest benefit. It is sort of like a social hierarchy, which a lot of us don't really like hierarchies. We would like to think and assume that we're all on equal playing field, we're all equally intelligent, and we're all equally yoked. But that's not the case. Like, some of us aren't, there's a lot of people out here that's not really that intelligent. So I think a minority needs to come together like a network, kind of like this, and come up with concepts and systems that we can kind of influence people by, and do like soft economics, soft politics, soft power. For example, even though Kendrick is like a big guy, and I hate that people keep talking about Kendrick, even though he's like this super famous megastar, right after the Super Bowl, one of the most Googled terms was, what was it called? 40 acres and a mule. So that was the second most Googled thing right after the Super Bowl. And that plants seeds. That plants the seeds of a potential reparations conversation on a mass level. So I always thought that's a love. Some people are critiquing Kendrick or whatever, but I think those small micro seeds can be planted, and then we can spread out from there. And I think maybe Bigo, and we can be like a small revolution, a small renaissance, and spread out from there. You know what I'm saying? And just be inspired by all the cool things that civilization has provided. Like I said, Islam I think has a lot of answers for a lot of things that we shun it for. I think it answers a lot of our issues when it comes to marriage relations, economics, and on politics. It has like literal answers for it. And I think we should like look at some of these things and apply it a bit, or at least be inspired by it, as well as other systems too, not just Islam, but other systems as well. But go ahead.
Yeah, really quickly before the next person goes, I just wanted to say that that video that we was watching on Ruby's panel when they were talking about, I believe, the Indian caste system, and they were talking about that within their culture that they push mathematics, they push STEM, and that's why you see a lot of Indian people that are in STEM and math
Exactly.
and technology, I mean, and STEM. And I thought that that was very interesting because within the culture, they are literally promoting education and promoting a specific education, and the people are following. And what if, in our culture, we will push that, right? Because even in like Christianity or these other religions, you see like this push for babies. And the only reason why I say Christianity because unfortunately within the Black state of mind, the Christians run free. So it's like this push for, be fruitful, multiply, and all this other stuff, but not necessarily a quest for knowledge. And I think that is very important that we start pushing for that more as well. Not, and I think that we made a leaps and bounds from when I was younger, where being the geek wasn't the thing. Well, as opposed to today, like, these kids is going to school dressed like Yu-Gi-Oh characters. Like they like, and these are Black children, right? They be doing what they want to do, and I love the fact that I do get to see that. So I do want to highlight that a lot of the things that we had to deal with growing up, our kids aren't necessarily dealing with. Like, just to land my plane, like I grew up in a time where you had to literally pay attention to your phone. Like you couldn't just be having it out. And now I be seeing little kids put their phone on the sidewalk, walk 5 feet away, and do a TikTok video. Like that could never have happened when I was growing up. You could barely keep your jacket when I was growing up. So I think that we do need to recognize when things have changed. Just as much as like, yes, there are people that are still effed up in the world, but things are changing. But that's all I wanted to
Indeed.
say. With all the shares, I don't know who was next. I'm
Babu.
sorry.
It was me. I was next after that.
No, yeah, no. It was Val. It was Val, and then it's gonna go to you,
Oh, it was
Mr.
about.
Boucher.
Then it's me.
Yeah.
All right.
So I feel like in this moment, exactly what I took the time to prefix what I was about to say because I felt that the possibility was going to be there, right? But I'm nothing if not consistent. And I'm going to speak when I started this topic, I spoke about the lens from which my Black state of mind is executed, right? Which is through the lens of what we have been impacted by and the change that needs to come. And everybody who knows me on here knows that, right? And so if I'm in the room and a claim is made that is not indicative of the reality that I know to be true, I'm going to speak on it. And a problem that I think we have is that there are people who think you're not allowed to do that. That just because they have a position on something, you should shut up. And that's weird to me. And my whole intentions was to elucidate that there is a bracket of people that are not categorized as such, but definitely are in a lived experience that's not on paper. And that's important because they have to be visible for a solution to be created for them. I land my plane.
I agree, Val. I'm gonna let Mr. Kuche talk, but I'm definitely gonna speak to that when when you're finished, Mr. Kuche. It's on you.
Okay. Can you guys hear me? Oh, okay. Wait, my
Yeah,
little
we heard
thing.
you.
Can y'all hear me? Okay. Yeah. I was actually going to reply to competition and how it was stated that, you know, as Black people, we need to become more aware that we're in a competition. I don't think Black America has ever lost sight of that. Matter of fact, that's one of the number one complaints of Black people, and what has created supremacy, because there's a group of people that don't want to compete based off of the color of their skin, and that makes the group of people that aren't that color work harder for everything they have to get. Then they become disenfranchised with the system because they feel like it's not working. Like, it's not unnecessary, because this narrative of, to me, and this is just my opinion, of all Black people come together and we unify. That's not going to happen. You know why? Because it's just not. It doesn't even happen amongst white people. It doesn't. Like, you know what I'm saying? But they know their individual tasks. Just about knowing the individual tasks. Like, you know what I mean? Look, I'm not out here, and it's the basic shit, the general shit. I'm not out here robbing my people. I'm not out here killing my people. I'm building income. You know what I'm saying? I'm establishing a family. Like, basic shit. And it's not necessarily, you know, a white unity. I mean, you do have the Klan and things like that, but overall, the people that aren't involved in the KKK, they just living their best little white life under those pretenses. Because to think that Black people are going to come
Mr.
together
Kuche, try to
on,
get a little bit closer to your mic for the
oh,
audio for me.
sorry,
Like I hear you,
is
but I
it?
want to be like clear.
So to say that Black people all need to come together and like just dismount the unity, I don't see that's more of a task in the way, because that's just not the case for any people. I mean, there's Asian people fighting other Asians right now. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, just get your individual business together, and then that's how you get added into like a group. Like, if that, like, the way that we describe it as Black people is like really not how it works. Like, they're not saying, oh, white people are 10 times richer because they all have collectively created money. No, they're going by individual households. What these motherfuckers are doing by the individual households. So you gotta get your individual household together on a basic narrative of, I'm not out here trying to do too much. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because Black people getting along, like, that don't happen. That's not gonna happen. That's just not gonna happen. But there should be a common line of understanding. Like, look, I'm just out here to get my shit. Out here to get your shit. You know what I mean? Of course, we're gonna argue and fight or whatever have you. But you know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to kill you. You shouldn't be trying to kill me. That kind of shit.
I think it was going to God Energy, then Balboa. If I'm skipping you, speaking out or forever hold your
Maybe
peace.
It was
Napa.
me, but I'll go after both of y'all. So I'll be
Napa?
really quick. I'll be very quick after you
Yeah,
guys. I
I'm
want to hear you guys
losing
first.
sight of the hands with the people coming in. I'm sorry.
It's all good. Yeah, I'll go
Yeah,
after
okay,
Balboa.
you go. Yeah, you'll go last. Okay, all right, bye.
Mhm.
Yeah, I got energy. It's on you.
Peace, y'all. I understand the aspect of just wanting to live a regular life that we see on TV, in a neighborhood with neighbors and things like that. And part of what has held our community back is our lack of unity. Because when we talk about poverty, the ghetto, the bad things we see there, the things that we've been hurt by, right, with our experiences with the Black community, with Black people, it makes us want to leave the community. It makes us want to leave Black people. It makes us want to give up on the Black community and Black people and the idea of a collective unity. And I completely understand that trauma. I resonate with that trauma, and I try to work to alleviate some of those things in my community. But to quote Cornel West, the last thing we need is Black people running around loving everyone but themselves, right? And the Black individual who becomes a millionaire um, moves completely away from Black people, marries a white wife, and invests in private prisons, that person is just as much a detriment to the Black community. That person is just as much of a lack of contribution to the Black community, right? A lack of elevating and pushing the Black community forward than the average drug dealer, right? And maybe even when these times when the drug dealer at least has a Black family and is providing for a Black family, that Black drug dealer is contributing to the Black community genetically, right? Doing even more so than said millionaire, right? And let's put a name on it. Michael Jordan can be an example, right? The average drug dealer with a Black family is more of a contribution to the Black community than Michael Jordan has ever been and ever will be, right? So there's a lot to encompass here, right? And I will go with the words of Cornel West again by stating the last thing we want or need is Black people running around loving everyone but themselves. And I don't think integration and our genetic dispersal, right, and our genetic annihilation should be the option, right, of in assimilation and acculturation. So I get the aspect of getting your personal things together. I support that, but to be a contribution to the collective, right? And that's what we've lost sight of, right? Not thinking like, because the gang member who shoots Black people down on the street has lost that collective ideal, like had been suggested, right? So to lose the collective ideal is what's bad. And that's what makes the gang member, right, just as much of a negative to the Black community as the rich Black person who never contributes back to the Black community financially, socially, or genetically. And I think people lose sight of that aspect because we don't have a team mindset, a community mindset, right? We do need to value each other because the gang member who is willing to pick up arms in our fixed society, that is your military. Right? We have been reduced to barbarism. All of the dual spirits in our community have always been contributors to the Black community. They had a place in Egypt in these ancient times. So I actually also advocate for a pro-Black acceptance of LGBTQ community, a pro-Black acceptance of the drug dealers, to reform the drug dealers and the street guys. I do feel like those who are willing to pick up arms do and have always had a valued place in societies and communities. And because we are not in the position as a conquered peoples to form a standing military, those who are willing to pick up arms, right, have naturally manifest in humanity to protect. And because they don't have anything to protect, we turn on each other and cannibalize each other, which is the state of any barbarous peoples. You will find that anywhere you go on the planet. That is not unique to Black people, right? So it does speak to the state of the Black mind for them to even be in that position. So I like all of these things that are being tossed up in the air because it does help to bring the conversation full circle. And I think if we value each other, people will start to value themselves. But we have to lead by example and let them know they are valued so they do begin to value themselves. Peace, y'all.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Val. Oh, I'm sorry. Before you go, Val, we're basically just talking about the Black state of mind, what it means to you. What do you want to see in our community moving forward as it speaks to the Black state of mind? And when you go, just remember that we are recording for YouTube. So if you want to plug in your stuff, do your thing, brother. I ain't mad at you at all. After that, we're going to Balboa.
So yeah, I just wanted to talk about the importance of telling our stories, and whether they be fictional stories that project ideas about the experience or possibilities, or whether they be memoirs, right, or documentaries about what exactly is happening. That is of extreme importance because we need to share that with people who don't have a full understanding of their own experience as well as the experience of those around them. And I say that also in relation to having an understanding of the truth about the information, what the information shows, right? And being able to break down the nuances of like some of what I spoke about before, which is like the difference between looking at poverty on paper and understanding that there's also a working poor, and understanding that even the way that the government is structured and the people who are telling the story about those numbers are looking at it in a way that you may not even agree with, right? And so to assume that they're telling us who is poor when I know for certain that they don't consider the differences in expenses, even by city or state, that's important, right? That makes a difference between who's poor, because I might live a better life poor somewhere in the middle of the country than I do here, right? But then that leads me to the conversation about the types of solutions that we're suggesting, where I hear from a lot of people like, well, why don't you just move? Or why don't people just move? Or why don't they just get a better job? Or why don't they? And is that practical or rooted in the reality that what would work for people, right? So like, for instance, New York is extremely expensive, and one might say, well, you should move to another place where it's more affordable. And that's actually, it's a good proposition, right? But for some people, it may not be, because maybe where it's accessible to do so, their skills are not valued there or needed, right? Or the construct is such that it's so tightly wound around who has been there, that gaining access just by moving there is not, and I'm saying that based on experiences that I've seen people go through, right, in making those types of attempts. And I do also feel strongly that we have a right and that we should fight where we stand as well. Not only, right, but where we are, that we should be putting a demand. They say power concedes nothing without a demand. I feel like we should always be making that demand. I land my plane.
Man. Damn, Balboa, damn. You kind of said what I was going to say in a way. Because I was looking at it like, yeah, I'm from Los Angeles.
I hate talking after Balboa, by the way.
I know, right?
Hate it.
Yo, she said it much better than I would ever say it, though. But I was going to say something completely different. And I was going to go back to like, what is black-mindedness, or the black state of mind? Like, ideally, so I started off with something negative earlier, but ideally it would be an Afrofuturistic perspective, right? Because a lot of our youth culture, which is they're the ones that are important for real. They're not nihilistic. They're hedonistic and they're nihilistic. There's not much to look forward to because it's so expensive and it's so degraded. It's so the internet and everything. But I think that we should push a palatable black-mindedness, and it'd be more futuristic, walkable cities. Universal basic income, because we are moving into this AI automated future. And I think universal basic income is inevitable for everybody. But I think especially for Black and disenfranchised people, we could benefit from that the most. And also, along with that, rebuilding cities that we're getting pushed out to. For example, I'm from Los Angeles, South Central. A lot of people where I'm from got pushed out to the Valley, pushed out to Las Vegas, pushed out to Arizona, in these areas where it's all industrial, it's just warehouses. There's no jobs to get besides warehousing. There's low income housing. Everyone's bored. They have a bunch of marijuana shops and liquor stores everywhere. It's not walkable. So you need a car. You need a car to get to where you got to go. So that creates a sense of isolation between you and your environment, you and your neighbor. And it's just like, and then you go back to the city, you go back to Inglewood, you go back to Hawthorne, Compton, and it's walkable now. You see white people walking their dogs at midnight. It's crazy. You know what I'm saying? You go to Inglewood where they built that new stadium where the Rams play. That whole area, Elon Musk has a SpaceX is right down the street, right? It's right there on Crenshaw, Crenshaw on 120th. That whole area is walkable. It's nice. It's beautiful. They got an under road railroad tunnel. Beautiful, right? But we don't benefit from that. I'm not saying all Black people moved out. There are Black people still over there, but for the most part, it's a bunch of others over there now. It's Latinos, Asians, and others, and higher income Black people. And then you go to Vegas. Vegas 10 years ago wasn't a predominantly Black area, especially North Las Vegas. You go over there now, the crime went up. I think it's number 6 to number 8 in the national homicide rate list, Las Vegas. So people are taking their crime. These young people, they don't know what to do. So they're taking their Crips and their Bloods and their GDs and BDs. Because you got GDs and BDs in Vegas now. You got niggas from Chicago being pushed out of Chicago for the same reason as they are getting up from LA, being pushed out to these destitute areas. And then it's just like, you're seeing this all over the country too. It's not just in the West Coast. You're seeing this all over the country. But then, man, I always imagine redesigning places like Vegas, you know, creating these blueprints, like these small micro cities, like these miniature cities, and creating like a concept for that. So, you know, we can think in the future. Because again, I think UBI is inevitable. And I think that we have to start getting adapt to that, so we can start going to these politicians and tell them what we need for our communities, walkable cities and things like that, you know, more community centers and all that. But yeah, I'm done.
Yeah, we're gonna go to I don't know if I'm skipping anybody because a lot was happening.
Wow. Sorry.
Hold on.
Thanks
Hold
for
on, babe,
the
honey.
200 beans.
Hold
I
on,
didn't
honey.
expect that.
Hold on, honey. Hold on.
I
We're
apologize.
doing a broadcast. Yeah, we're doing a broadcast right now. And we're talking about the Black state of mind, right? And you are more than welcome to join and you know, put your 2 cents in. We raise our hands, we wait our turn, and we try not to cut people off. Um, with that being
I,
said, I'm just making sure I'm not skipping anybody. And also, I want to say thank you, Fusion, for all the gifts you're giving out, the lotteries, all of that. I appreciate you. Um, I believe it's Got Energy next, and then we're going to Rep. But am I skipping anyone? I don't think so. All right, go ahead, Got
y-
Energy.
yes, sorry for calling you short. I just realized I had 200 beans, so I wanted to thank the person that sent it.
Thank
No
you, brother.
problem.
Yeah, I do support the idea of like micro cities and things like that. Us resegregating ourselves. What we think of as segregation was our marginalized integration, with us living in the same cities and towns as white people, but being confined to ghettos, being redlined into specific areas. That's not segregation. That is our marginalized integration. Real segregation were the days of Tulsa, Oklahoma, right, and Rosewood and places like that. And I think we should get back to that. Like the brother Napa said, forming micro cities that will become major cities. We know they definitely will, which is why places like Tulsa, Oklahoma were systematically destroyed all across America, culminating in 1919, known as the Red Summer, right? So I do think that is important, and I do think that that is what we should do, is resegregate ourselves, consolidate amongst ourselves. You know what I mean? We would have to circulate the black dollar. We would be forced to rely on each other for goods and services. We would have to value each other to survive. You know, just reinstitute a lot of these things that we have lost, right? And I do want to restate that, yes, those that are willing to pick up arms are supposed to be the ones who serve to protect us. That is supposed to be our safeguard against violence that others would commit against us. And it happens to be what we call gang members. It happens to be what was reduced to gang members. And I'm glad the Black Panthers were brought up, because it was exactly the Black Panthers who were reduced to these gang members. And so much so that these gangs and their names, right, still maintain their genetic affiliation, their genetic remnants to the Black Panthers and the revolutionary movements. In that Crip means community.
Give the brother a second to try to come back. He may have received the call, but he was definitely on fire.
Absolutely. I don't necessarily know who is next. It's
I
hard
think
to
I
keep
had
up with everything that's going on in the comments. Again, Fusion, thank you.
I think I had the mic right
Um,
after God Energy.
I was gonna say I thought it was you. Okay, great. Go ahead.
As we wait for the brother to return, definitely thank you so much, Fusion, for supporting the revolution. Absolutely. When we start talking about micro cities, we're interacting with a brother who's definitely putting foot to pedal and the creation of said uh, uh, mobility. We all, or most of us, were present for the Black People's 50-year plan as presented by Fusion Design, and we need to get in touch with that. I did want to ask a practical question though. More than a statement, I wanted to ask, because we keep suggesting, being on code and building a code of ethics. Do you think that we need to put something on paper down that we could literally see something visceral that we can have something to aspire to? Many of us have consumed the works of like Dr. Claude Anderson. Most of us understand, circulating the black dollar. We understand trying to see if little small tasks like moving your money to black banks, um, uh, things that I try to do, such as, imparting knowledge and teaching aspects of STEM to people, of my kind, so that I can make sure that we can remain competitive. Taking a feather from Balboa and God Energy's perspective, making sure that you can impart civics and the understanding of civics, and it's important to, to the, our ascension out of this struggle. Do we need to put it down on paper so that we have something visual that we can almost like check mark and tick off, so that we're sure that we're measuring our milestones and moving forward in a perspective direction, especially for people that want to, maintain a black mind state and stay focused on what matters? I wanted to ask that of the panel, and to ask what are some of those things that should be on that code of ethics. You know what I'm saying? To make sure that we stay in alignment with what the future goal should and would look like. And I hate to do this, but I do know that with the time constraints being considered, this will be around the time that I was going to recommend to Issa that this might be a good time for us to take a brief intermission break and maybe think on that as we come back with our list of things.
Okay, yeah, this would be a perfect time to take a little break for the recording so they can get it back together. If y'all all want to come off of mute and just like yell and scream, because y'all been doing such a good job with taking the time and taking turns, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I'm going to start yelling and screaming right now. It's like, no, I'm not going to start yelling and screaming. You know what I mean? But nah, like, I definitely, I'm, you Ethan,
No,
we've had this
wait.
conversation.
Save what you're gonna say for the conversation, because right now they're switching because we don't want to make one recording so long for the edit. So I want to make sure that what you say gets to be heard.
All right, because you know what I mean. Look, all skin folk ain't kin folk. That's just my whole thing. Like, you know what I'm saying. So I feel like when you look like me, you got to be like, okay, you look like me. Okay, but do you know that too? Like, you know what I'm saying? Because there's a lot of us that don't know that we look alike and we in the same position. You know what I'm saying? So working, like, it's the working together that's going to get us. It is. It's the working together. That's not my. To me, that's what's going to get us together. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because, and when we come up
I don't
with
want
this
you to keep on going. I don't want you to keep on going because this is not being recorded.
All right,
I want you to be able to get your shit on the recording, child.
Because I got a lot of questions. Because it'd be a good idea, but I just got a lot of questions on the hangups that I noticed. Like, you know what I mean? Just from us, like, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, and really quickly, let me give a big shout out to Angie. She's also helping record tonight, and she's coming all the way from Africa to come over here and record for us 5 hours away. 5 hours behind. No, they're in front of us. Yeah, they're in front of us. So so she's on tomorrow already trying to help us out, and I appreciate you for staying up with us and recording this for us, because like the DLC is really moving. I don't know if
this where I'm supposed to be, bro. Although all kind of
absolutely.
toxic.
I'm glad.
Issa,
I'm glad you found some comfort over here.
Are we doing the bill with Haru tomorrow? Are we doing that on Wednesday? your
Wednesday,
panel, right?
yes. We're gonna do the Haru Bill Wednesday. I'm gonna talk to Rep about it tomorrow. He don't know about it yet, but we're gonna have a whole conversation about it.
All right,
As
good.
far as Pool, I feel like he's here, but sometimes he be driving and
Same,
he
man.
just be here to listen. So I'm gonna big him up for a second because he's not here to do it for himself. He also Box Seven has a YouTube channel, Hotep Hustle, where he has been doing some amazing interviews over there. He interviewed the man who wrote um, Caesar's Messiah. I'm gonna suck with names. That's why I was wishing that he was gonna be able to do this for himself. Yes, girl, he did that, right? He did that interview, which was really amazing. He did
Great
another
interview.
interview. Yeah, he did the interview with Tony Browder. He oh, if God Energy can pop up, he knows the names of the people that our brother Cosmic, our brother Anpu has been doing his interviews with. But I just wanted to shout out his YouTube page. I'm sorry, Hotep Hustle, spelled exactly like that. Check him out. Like he's over there doing animations. He's over there doing interviews, like with people who are actual writers. Some of the writers that y'all actually know of. So please check him out. Um, my sis Balboa, as always. Like if anybody else, while we're in this little break, if y'all wanna like plug in y'all stuff, this is the time to do it. God Energy, really quickly before everybody else start plugging in their stuff, can you just give a little breakdown of the things going on Cosmic's panel? Because I stuck with names. Because I believe he's driving. I
Yeah,
don't think he's
yeah. One of the
able.
individuals that he interviewed was Joseph Atwill, researcher, author of Caesar's Messiah, talking about the the Roman hand in creating New Testament scriptures and things like that. He interviewed Anthony Browder, famed author in the Black community, talking about the things related to the Black state of mind and our ancestral connection and greatness. He spoke to one of the sisters that was involved with the movement of the Republic of New Africa. She's a revolutionary modern activist, a great example of the excellence of the Black state of mind. I believe I forgot who else he said he's going to interview coming up next. I don't want to misspeak, right? But I think it might be Professor James Smalls coming up next.
Oh
But
wow.
Cosmic's got a bunch of great stuff going on over there at the Hotep Hustle. Our brother Ampu Ankh Un Amat Ma'at, right? So yeah, we're gonna check him out. So yeah, good stuff all around, y'all.
Thank you, thank you. Also, just to throw this out there as well, we have God Energy's panel. He just did a panel on Black migration. It's going to be put on to the Duel of Concepts YouTube channel, which was a really great panel. I really suggest people go out and check it out. Um, yeah, so I don't
Yeah,
know
can
if
I
y'all
just give
ready
a
to.
can
Oh,
I give a
go
recap?
ahead, brother. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I
Please
appreciate
do.
it. Yes, African origins, right? It's about we go over genetics, we go over migration patterns, we go over Homo sapien, and Neanderthal relationships. We get into different ethnic groups and ancestral groups of peoples and things like that. It was a really good build. I urge everyone to tune in, and we would appreciate the support over at the Duel of Concepts. Peace, yo.
That's what it is. That's what it
Oh, we
is.
need that.
Uh,
We
just
need that.
just as just as a heads up, we may have lost our secondary recording source, but no worries. I'm still recording. That being said, please feel free to pick up with the conversation at the behest of the host whenever she's ready.
Okay, yeah, no problem. We can continue the conversation. I think that we were going to be starting with Mr. Kuche. And then I believe Balboa raised her hand. I believe Napa. Let me know if
Yeah.
I'm telling the truth, y'all.
Yep.
Yeah, you
Okay,
here?
so
Okay, no problem.
yeah, my
Oh,
question,
got
my
energy?
question is,
Do you think, Mr. Kuche, you on?
all right, my thing is who would make this like standard or code? Who would be in charge of that? Because that, like to me, the way our society runs now amongst each other is so divided between adopted belief systems all the way around the board to the point that there really isn't a unified thought. So
That's a great
when
question.
you talk about
It should
making
be a
like
podcast, man.
like like a code of ethics among us, that's going to vary because you're going to have Muslims, Hebrew Israelites, Christians, you know what I mean, the rainbow. You're going to have men, women, and we're all given different experiences living within the black diaspora. Like, you know what I'm saying? We're all given different experiences because of the labels that we have to adopt in order to, move forward. So how about we create something that is, you know, uh, inclusive of everyone?
If I could cut line for 1 second just to respond to your question, I completely agree. And I was thinking that same thing. And I was posing it as a question just to see if it resonated with anybody. But I think fundamentally, there might be some really generic concepts that I think we can all agree on, such as, the concept of revolving the black dollar in the black community. I mean, who amongst us, whether Christian, whether Muslim, whether, atheist, wouldn't argue that, if the conceptualization is staying in that black state of mind, that at least that's something, staying in focus that we could all kind of galvanize around. Like I would struggle to argue to suggest what someone would be against that when they were included in the Black State of Mind conversation. Now I do get your premise though that certain things might be a bridge too far, but even with the concept of like trying to find ways to expand our knowledge and teaching reaching back to teach somebody or bring somebody back up. I think some of those concepts are very generic enough that I think that we can, perhaps all agree on. But I do get your point that some might be, we have to be cautious, and I would almost presume that we, this is us, so we could have a board, we could do votes, we could say what needs to be included, and make a good rationale if something needs to be off the list and give a reason for it. But finding those things that we have in common being the more important order of the day that we can all agree on.
Babu.
Val is on you, Steve.
So, being of the tech mind, like I understand in the physical, the benefits of being in proximity to each other would yield. Um, where that's possible, how that's possible, and I applaud everybody who's working towards that kind of initiative. Um, I don't completely feel that it's necessary, only because proximity was a benefit because of things that we didn't have available to us today, like the technology at the level that we have it today, right? I also feel like when we look to Black Wall Street, for instance, I definitely applaud a lot of what I saw in that. Um, and I feel like some of what's left out of that is that they also struck oil there, which is part of the enrichment as well, right? But there also were minds that were present that these people were geniuses, right? Like doctors that were applauded by the Mayo brothers at the time. That's the Mayo Clinic that we know today. for their expertise in that area. And for those reasons, they had money and they used that money in order to do like microloans for people of that time. We don't have to be next to each other to do that anymore. I also feel like it puts us at risk. I think it puts us in imminent danger, especially in the current climate where what I feel like we see forming is the same energy that existed then, which first of all forced them into that area and also massacred them, right? I personally feel in the building that I live in that is of mixed race that I'm safer than if I just got all together with all of us in one place and they could just drop a bomb on us like Move in Pennsylvania. So I wonder
You're
if
killing the plants.
I'm sorry. I
I'm
wonder
sorry. I'm
if
sorry.
yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm
You're over
sorry.
talking me though. You're over talking me. Thank you.
Yeah,
So
let me mute
yeah,
my mic
I
real quick.
excuse me. So I wonder if we're thinking all those things through when we talk about centralizing ourselves in one cohesive area. If we're thinking about who the enemy is, in my opinion, right? And I say that in the context of what's happening on the federal level in our government right now, and what it seems like a parallel to me to other forms of entities coming into power that have bad intentions, specifically towards the people of the diaspora. I land my plane.
See how, yeah, I think I'm next, right? See who's up
Yeah, it's
there.
on you, hon.
Yeah. So I'm looking at, I'm reading what Guy Energy's typing. And what makes us unique is as Black Americans, especially the FBAs or the foundational Black Americans from the other groups, the other diaspora groups, there's not much of an underlining culture there, right? We're just American, we're Black American. Like, what is the underlining Black American culture? Because you can look at the Nigerian culture, you can either it's Christianity or it's Islam or some kind of tribal whatever origin that they have. They have a second language, which is really cool for them because they can codify themselves. You have the Chinese that they have their language, the Indian and their Hindu. So what makes us unique is that, again, we're completely removed from whatever our essence and origin is, and codifying is a bit difficult. Like, that's why a lot of these Black Wall Streets failed, and that's why a lot of these these movements failed, because anybody can infiltrate it. And I think that we got to find something palatable that the youth can adapt to, that the elderly can adapt to, that's palatable and that covers all aspects of life. Again, I do think that there's systems that do exist that we might not all agree on this, but I do think we should probably formulate what that is when we're writing down what this manifesto is. What is it? What is the Black underlining culture? What are we operating on? How do we address the single parenthood that's abundant in our community, the abortion rates, the homicide rates, the obesity, the addiction, the poverty, the usury, the interest? I think we need a system that can cohesively address all these issues in a palatable way, and then it'll be like, okay, because really a lot of our social justice is all over the place. The whole social justice thing is just all over the place. There's too many movements that are coercing with this thing. You got too many different needs that we're addressing. I think we need to start from the basics first, and which is our families. Our family units is the most important. The man, woman, child. That's the spine of a civilization. So if we're not dealing with that, then everything else is kind of like, what are we doing? You know what I'm saying? That's just my opinion. I think we should start from the basic man, woman, child. We should even take inspiration from these other cultures or even historical cultures across the world, that in African cultures as well, getting permission from the father or the mother to marry off your child. That should be permissible. Artificial selection, which is what they call it. You got natural selection, and then we got artificial selection, to where we choose our partners with intent and we join families together. Otherwise, it's just every man for himself, is willy-nilly, it's hedonism. And I think we got to start with some conservative perspectives before we spread out. But that's just my opinion. Go ahead.
Peace,
Was
peace.
anybody next? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was. I don't remember seeing a hand after that. But I actually wanted to pose a question to the panel. Do you guys have a time period that we could point out where we had a progressive Black state of mind, where Black people did good, where Black people were on the right track? Do we all have
Malcolm
like a
X.
reference or an idea of maybe an era or a group in American history, right? Let's not get ancient and BC with this, right? Let's be more
Malcolm
focused,
X.
right? Hold on, brother. Let me finish my question real quick. Um, and we can go around and everyone could chime in because I'm very interested in everyone's opinion. Do we have a reference or an idea of, okay, this at this time period, Black people were on the right track. Black people had a positive Black state of mind, right? And then with that, identifying what changed that or how we got off course. Or
Jewish.
I feel like also it's just as relevant to say, actually, I can't identify when we had a good Black state of mind or a positive Black state of mind that I think we should get back to. I'm actually interested in what these answers may be, and if we have never had the proper Black state of mind given our circumstances in America. I'm interested in what the panel thinks.
Okay, so I'm gonna quickly say what I was gonna say, and then I'm gonna answer your question, and then we're gonna go to Napa and then Mr. Kuche, right? Um, I was gonna say that as far as the Black culture, I think that the way we look at Black culture is wrong. Like for me, Black culture would be like sitting at the kids' table to sitting at the adults' table. The street lights coming on. You gotta be home. You better not go in the house too many times or you stay in the house. Like these are things that happen in all of the Black families, and these are things that kind of like keep us together. Like we could all sit down and have a story about one of those things happening in their childhood. That's the thing that keeps us together. That's what the culture is. And I think that when we're talking about culture, we're looking for a religion. We're looking for a signature dish. We're looking for a language. When in all reality, what culture does is bring the people together. And the fact that we can all sit on a panel or have a conversation about our childhoods and pinpoint things that happened that all of our parents did, that's culture. That's the culture right there. It just doesn't look the same as everyone else, and that's fine. Now, as far as God Energy's question, I feel like for me, it would be Reconstruction, right? Where we're actually building, where we're actually in the politics at high numbers. I think the thing that kind of kills it for us is that the laws weren't on our side at that time. But if we put the mentality, the drive, the push, the political power that they had during Reconstruction right now, we will be unstoppable. And with that being said, I'm going to go to Napa and then I'm going to go to Mr. Kuche.
Yeah, I agree with you. That is culture, but I'm also thinking about what are the rites of passages? What's the customs? You got culture and customs. What's the customs of Black culture, which we do have? There are rites of passages. Are they well established? Are they well recognized across the nation? That's I don't know. That's one of my many critiques about Black American culture, that it's a deviation from any sort of our essence, and it's just pretty much hedonism for the most part, capitalism for the most part. And there is no rites of passage. There is no joining of the families for the most part. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, but for the most part, it doesn't happen. So I'm just wondering if there is a palatable way that we could address that, because every culture in America that comes here they deal with these same issues once they get 2 or 3 generations down the line. Their children, their grandchildren start adopting this Western way of mind and materialism and hedonism, right? They completely deviate from their original. This is the problem with any culture, Japanese, Chinese, Hindu. And I think we're the first ones that experienced it. We could, because of our history here. So we experience what happens to a culture that gets completely stripped from its essence first before anybody else. And I think, again, there are solutions, there's antidotes for this. There's cultures that we come from that we can still model from. And I do think, to answer God Energy question, I do think during the Renaissance era, that early 1900s, 1930s to 40s, 50s, I think that there were some really good movements, multiple movements that were coming out that had really good ideas that were reconstructing the Black community. Before you get to, let's say, you get to the 70s, you start getting welfare. You started getting low income housing projects, food stamps. That's when I start to notice that, yeah, shit went downhill after that, you know? So yeah, I think that in all these cultures, it wasn't just religion, even though, again, I hate to say it. I really hate to say it. Religion is really, it knows how to conceptualize these concepts in a palatable way that people can collectively agree upon and find an objective truth. And that's why I think that's the effect of this of religion. That's why it works so well. That's why it's been around so long. And anything other than that is considered paganism, polytheistic, or just like aiming for the wind at that point. You do need, I think religion does make a group stronger than no religion. That's just my perspective on it, though. But yeah, I'll stop there.
We're going to Mr. Kuche, then we're going to Battle, then we're going to Ethical. I see you, City.
Okay, guys. First, I got a little bit annoyed because I actually work overnight and I'm here now. And it's weird because, see, I think the exact opposite. I think religion is the actual mind because it's no specific set one. Either you have one where you pray to this long haired, white faced dude with the blue eyes, you know what I mean? You adopt the Arab one or a more Hebrew based religion. Those are the 3 major ones here. Even when you get into Buddhism, it, you know what I mean? Yes, we have origins here, and okay, but that's not the way it's practiced within our civilization. And you begin to apply all these religious ideologies onto a group of people, that starts making a selection and division within itself because everybody, look, we're in 2025. There's guys with braids that are dyed and they wear fingernail polish and earrings. Like, you know what I'm saying? But they deserve to be included. Like, you know what I'm saying? So that's why I don't personally think that it fits for us today as a people because we want it to be inclusive. And it's hard with religion to make something inclusive because it's occultic and it has very big base in like tribalism and things like that. Not that tribalism is bad, but it shouldn't be the main factor of organization. Like, you know what I mean? So that's the only reason why I would say religion isn't good. Is because it's not all inclusive. It's not. Because if it wasn't, everybody would be the same thing right now. Like, and they're not. Like, you know what I mean? And then which religion? Whose religion? Even if it was one from Africa, which one? Like, that's just so much work that I'm not willing
It doesn't
to do.
matter. It doesn't matter what kind of religion it is, as long as it's an objective truth. It doesn't matter what it is. Honestly, I mean, we can get stuck on which one, and then we all have our preferences. But I really don't think it matters what religion it is. I just think that if you have an objective truth that transcends reality, then it's gonna work for the group, in my opinion. And it could be science. Maybe science would be the collective agreed upon thing.
No,
Maybe science should be the religion, but it should be a collectively agreed upon objective truth. So it don't matter what
yeah.
religion it is.
Okay, well, we're going to let Mr. Kuche land, and then we're going to go to Balboa, and then
No,
we're going
you
to
guys can
Dotson.
go ahead. You guys can go ahead. I mean, that's because I do think black people had made more progress back in the day in America than now. But that was my only gripe is that it was always encompassed around somebody else's religion. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not a fan of that. And I know lots of people that aren't.
religion
So
ain't
now,
logic though.
like you said
Yeah, I
what?
agree.
Yeah, so when you just have to have a common goal. So when
That
you have
is
a common
true. You
goal,
do need a common goal,
religion
but
doesn't
hold
play a
on.
part
Hold on,
because
honey. Hold on, honey. Hold on, honey. 'Cause I'm gonna put you on the list to go right after agnostic because Balboa's been waiting patiently. So we're gonna go
All
to
right, go ahead. Yeah,
Balboa, we're
yeah,
gonna go to
go ahead.
ethical, and then we're gonna go to you, Boxy, okay?
all right.
So
Go
yeah,
ahead,
you know,
Balboa.
I like to go to the data when it comes to stuff like this, and I'm glad I did because it actually leads me to consider my position about migration, about having collective activity around like where we're going to be and how we're going to be. The reason why I say that is because so knowing some of the data and then digging deeper while you guys were talking, it turns out that from 1940 to 1970, Black men cut the income gap by a third. And by 1970, they were earning roughly 60% of what white men took in. But we experienced a series of decline from 1972 to 2022. Now, if we know anything about that time period, in the 80s, they started to introduce drugs into our communities intentionally by the government, right? And I would assume that if they started in the 80s, that they probably were trying some other things before that to counteract that. And I feel that it is intentional. I don't have specific proof other than the overarching racist system that has consistently done to us what it continues to do, right? But I'm pretty sure that they didn't just start, just wake up one morning and go, let's just send drugs to the community. They were doing things probably before that to counteract the rise that was already experienced. We also know that post-slavery, that instantaneously white fear in regards to uprising from blacks because of what was done was already in the mindsets. And I believe that that mindset also still exists to this day in different forms, right? So I would put 1940 to 1970. And here's the thing: I looked into, well, what is that time period considered? Now there's a great gap. I don't want to call it a gap. There's a time period 1910 to the 1970s is considered the Great Migration for Black people, when they moved from the South to the North and Midwest, right? The first migration was from 1910 to 1940, and they were fleeing from really what is persecution, really what is the crux of Jim Crow, segregation, oppression in the South. And there were benefits, obviously, to that. So yeah, that just leads me to think about that, to think about how collectively that action served to uplift, right? But the thing that I really want to put forward is the fact that no matter what the movement is, there's still always this constant attack from the outside, right? Like what I feel is rising up again right now in the United States, right? And so whatever we do and however we move, it has to be with the consideration that there's an enemy, and an enemy that intends to keep their foot on our neck, because that's how they benefit, that's how they win, that's how they make their money, right? That's how they're riding out on yachts on the backs, as usual, of Black people. I land my plane.
Energy. I want to answer your question directly. Can you repeat that question again?
Yes, I appreciate it. And everyone pretty much so far has been answering the question in their own way, giving a time period. So I appreciate that. But the question was, in what era of Black American history do you feel like Black people had a good state of mind, a positive state of mind, where we were on the right track, right? Where maybe something we looked that we need to get back to. Is there an era in Black American history where you feel like Black people had a good state of mind that possibly got derailed at some point?
Um,
In all of them. In
Could I answer
every
this question?
era, excuse me, it's my turn. You can come, you go after me. In every era, we've been fighting, literally, in every era.
No,
Now,
we ain't talking
when it
about
comes,
fighting
can
though.
you shut up? I'm answering his question. Don't interrupt me.
Hold on, y'all,
My bad.
because I know what we know what interrupting looks like, and like I need you to let the people finish. I want you to stay box 8, so I'm gonna need you to be able to let everybody finish. You are going directly after her, okay?
I, I'm
With that being
sorry. I'm
said,
sorry, but the
no
question
problem.
was
I
good state
I
of
ain't mad at you.
mind.
I
No,
babe, hun, I'm not mad at you at all. All I'm saying is to just go on mute, let the sister finish, and then we go on to you. That's all I'm saying.
In every era, we've all had a good state of mind, and some of us had a bad state of mind. You had some of us that fought, and some of us that didn't. You had some, but we all always have had the same common enemy. And before we were colonized, the women were being oppressed. So due to what? Religion. So religion has never helped any women out. Religion has always been the detriment to women. Not all religions throughout time have been misogynist. So we in this day and age, we actually can, and even in certain points, we have people that actually were able to use their brains and were critical thinkers. They literally were able to make their own decisions, especially when it came to their personal lives. They didn't look to other people for advice. They actually were able to use their own brains. We have that capacity to self-govern. We don't need a religion. We just need critical thinking and to be humanist and ethical. Make sure that we don't harm each other. We don't need religion for any of that in any way, fashion, or form. To be a good human being is not hard, but religion and dominance makes it impossible. It makes us have to fight these forces on an ongoing. And in fact, it makes people psychotic. So I don't see where religion has helped us. It looks like it may have, but it never did. Because as long as women are oppressed, when our community is never going to move forward. And all we need is one woman oppressed. When one woman is oppressed, we all oppressed. I land my plane.
Box 8 is
hello.
on you, and then we're gonna go to God Energy. We're going to Napa, and then I'm gonna be on that list after that.
Yeah, sorry for interrupting the previous speaker. I'm just gonna make this as quick and
Oh, I'm
logical I
sorry. I'm
can to the
sorry,
best
Box
of my
8.
power.
Box 8, really
Yeah, yeah.
quickly. I'm sorry for cutting you off, right? I just want to greet Lord Messiah to the panel. We're basically talking about the black state of mind, what that means to you, how does it show up politically in your life, economically, all of that stuff. Wherever you want to take the conversation, you can take it. If you want to just comment on what you heard, you can do that as well. I'll put you at the bottom of the list if you want to, and that'll be that. Go ahead, Box 8. I'm sorry.
All right. So the if I'm correct, the question God Energy asks is yeah, when was there a time black people were hap- good state of mind. Now, I want to take us back to um Martin Luther King. He said he had a dream that a black man would rule this country. But the way I see it, the white man allowed a black man rule this country solely for his entertainment. Now, we as black people, before the thing about, oh, I'm sorry, I must have misplaced. I'm sorry, but what I'm trying to say is that we as black people, before we had, a division of, um, a faction, a faction of black people said, we indigenous Americans, saying that they were black people in America before the British colonists came, yada yada yada. Then you have the people who believe that slaves, we Africans sold their brothers into slavery rather than being oppressed to sell into slavery. Then, thirdly, we we could have a sense of unity only when there's an urgency that is still pushed by the left media, like in George Floyd. I wouldn't really say we were in a good state of mind. There was unity all over the world to protest, but the protest was Black Lives Matter. It wasn't about, oh, why ain't black people educated? Why are we the most incarcerated race in America? Instead, you had people fighting other black people, calling them immigrants, calling them African jigaboos, angry that some Nigerians or whatnot from other races came to, went to uni, got their STEM jobs, and took over. So I don't know, it's a cancer that's been put in us. No, I'm not American descent, but it's a cancer that's been put in us by propaganda, the left media, and the white man. So we won't agree with each other. Thank you.
It's on you, G. If he's still there, got energy.
Yes, I'm still here. Peace, y'all. Thank you for the answers to the question and the feedback. Did Alvin get to go? Alvin was supposed to go before me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Alvin. Go ahead. Alvin, it's on you. I apologize. I skipped you. It's on you now. Okay. So, with that being said, I'm gonna go to God Energy, and then if Alvin comes back, you could go right after God Energy. Whenever he comes back, he's gonna just take President. Go ahead, God Energy.
Okay, thank you. Peace, y'all. Yeah, I'm glad we got answers and things like that. I brought that up because I want to feel like I want to get in the habit of identifying things, and then working to solve problems or undo certain things. Because when we talk about the Reconstruction era, like the host mentioned, right? What took us off track in the Reconstruction era? It was something called the Great Nadir, right? Where they had gotten rid of all of the black people that made their way into politics, right? They undid policies that served black people and helped black people. It was during this era where they undid the field order that was going to provide black people with real estate in the form of 40 acres and a possible mule. right? That field order was overturned, right? And then you get the Homestead Act instituted, which gave free land to migrant white folks for them to develop instead of what was promised to Black people. So I asked this as an exercise for us to be able to identify specifically what took Black people off track when we did have our heads on straight. So in the Reconstruction era, it was something called the Great Nadir that took us off track. When Balboa highlighted the era she was talking about from the 40s up into the 70s, right? What took us off track then? It was the crack epidemic, as she identified. And it very much so was deliberate. And we can see in statements like J. Edgar Hoover stating we must prevent the rise of a Black Messiah, right? Well, how did they do that, right? They wanted to prevent the rise of a Lord Messiah, right? How did they attempt to do that? Through the crack epidemic. And it was this Iran-Contra scandal in Nicaragua, right? Where the CIA funded the Sandinistas who were rebelling against the Nicaraguan government. The CIA, the US Congress, did not pass funding for this conflict. So the CIA had to find an alternative means to fund this armed rebellion in Nicaragua, right? And it was this, what was known as the Iran-Contra scandal, where the CIA, right, would sell cocaine specifically to the Black community through the Italian mafia, specifically, right? And they would specifically target the Black community. They specifically targeted our community to stifle that movement and that growth that we were making. So we can identify certain things. And it was the very Danilo Blandon who worked with Freeway Ricky Ross, right? Who was a direct asset to the CIA and the Iran-Contras in Nicaragua, the Sandinistas. Danilo Blandon worked with the Sandinistas, right? And that Danilo Blandon was the same guy who was the plug and the connect for Freeway Ricky Ross, right? So this trail is there. We can connect and isolate figures that we know of popularly, like Freeway Ricky Ross, and connect him to Danilo Blandon. That directly links us to the Iran-Contras, the Sandinistas in Nicaragua. So the reason I asked to identify an era is so we can identify what was done to us. Because once we identify the problem, we can assess it, or at least have understanding and context of the situation we're in, so we can make informed decisions moving forward. Peace, y'all.
Peace.
Go ahead, Napa. I'm sorry, I'm doing something right now. Go ahead, Napa.
Actually, Balboa, you can go. You can go.
No, it goes to Lord Messiah if it's not Val,
sorry.
if you're
Oh,
not gonna
sorry.
go. And
Yeah,
then
go ahead.
Val, you could go and I'll go after y'all.
Peace. Yeah, I was gonna say, I think an era where, melanated people in this land were doing very well for themselves was in the 1920s. Also a resurgence, I would say, in like the 60s and 70s as well. But like you mentioned about the crack era and whatnot, that definitely did have an influence on breaking down our productivity, as a people. But I would say though, all in all, people always have the right to self-determination. So whenever people want to politically establish themselves or politically, assemble themselves, then they have the right to do so. You know what I mean? And there's nothing that can, stop you from doing that except you. You know what I mean? So like, I think like a lot of the excuse, and I say nowadays they're excuses because 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, we could blame the white man 100% for all the shit that was going on and all the bullshit, all the fuckery. Nowadays, it's like we didn't had a lot more liberation since those times, and we have a lot more things in our control, you know, and it's just on us whether we want to manifest it or not. You know what I mean? So, and I'm not saying like everything is all good and, you know, it's just we just got to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and all that other bullshit. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that, you know, self-determination. We have to be determined in what we want to do for ourselves. You know what I mean? We have to have determination behind it, because a good idea could be positive, but then it could winder away. You know what I'm saying? And we forget about it. We be like, yeah, you know, that was good, but nobody worked toward it. But we got to have determination toward exercise or something collectively. Peace.
Is it my turn?
No, it's
Hello.
oh yeah, yeah. Val, you
That's fine.
cool with Alvin? Okay, thank
That's fine.
you.
I know he's been
Go
waiting.
ahead, Alvin.
Good evening. I just want to say I think that everybody is doing a wonderful job in pulling in the different pieces to the puzzle. For me, the 54 experience in America was one that galvanized the people, the masses of the people. And you had a collective good kind of Garveyite kind of mindset when we had the young children who were willing to go to the jails because they believed in the changes that were necessary to combat, in that particular instance, the segregated laws and practices in the South. And you know, it's interesting the different perspectives that you have, because I've always looked at that area as a time where our religious leaders were the vanguard of the community. That was the one place where you could come together and share your concerns, and that body of people would put together the mechanisms and the strategies to fight, and that's where we learned how to come together and work strategically as we combated those injustices. But I just want to, as a retired person who worked in mental health for 40 years, there's a couple of key words that I want us to keep. Marginalization has to be a part of the thrust, the impact that it has had on us as a people. It doesn't matter how far you go in this world, you're always going to be kind of characterized or perceived as being inferior or inadequate. Um, I can remember when our former President Barack Obama, I was in office, and you know, with all the Harvard law degrees and all of the credentials that he had, I heard people literally say, "I wonder if he's qualified or not." And lastly, um, the thing that I think when we talk about the unity piece is we have to integrate the young legs, because it's the young legs that's going to do the footwork and be the troops, and they have to be a part. But I would submit to you, somewhere along the lines, we've got to touch people's hearts, because it seems as though there's so many divisions in our community now. I know when I sat, being a person who was in Chicago, and Dr. King came to Chicago, and they were riding and literally coming out of little brick bungalows, coming out of their homes, and you know, ugly. I saw hatred for the first time in my life. I was a little 9-year-old kid, and I saw people turning over cars. And I remember Dr. King telling the reporter, he said, Dr. King, you've been hit." He said, "I've been hit so many times, I'm immune to it." He said, "But I can safely say I've been all to the deepest parts of the South, and never have I experienced racism like I have in Chicago." So I just think that we are trying to justify what we should never have to justify, that we're human beings. That's the tough piece about it. Nobody really wants to talk about that. What they did was not fire us. They certainly killed us and lynched us and did a lot of harmful things. But we were told by this nation, which we love, that didn't love us back, that we didn't matter and our lives didn't matter. And even to this day, we still know, you want justice? how much can you afford? So I'm just looking forward to us coming together and let everybody who has a certain passion for a particular entity, let them bring it together. And then we have to vet it. There had to be some kind of mechanism where we can vet it, because some people are on the grid and some people are off the grid. Doesn't necessarily mean that because the thinking is outside the box that we can't use it. But I just would hope that we would always be conscious of those giants who walked before us. They showed us the blueprint. Now we got to extrapolate out of that experience. As the sister was saying, what is it that motivated us? What period was the thing that pulled you to? Because I would submit to you, and I'm going to be quiet after this. If there was a Miss Parks today in our community, in the state that it's in, and we said Miss Parks was injured and it was wrong, and how many of our young people would say, well, that was wrong, we got to go and protest that? I don't think we'd have that. What is it that made those young children in the 50s march and protest and do what they needed to do? Whereas now, I don't know her. What she got to do it? We're not brothers and sisters anymore. How do we get that back? We used to call each other brother and sister. That's it. That's basically what's on my heart tonight.
Facts.
No, I appreciate you for
I don't
sharing
know.
that. Wait, but hold on,
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Kuche. We're gonna go to Balboa.
So as I sit here and we're having this conversation, I'm always trying to be on the dime of what's happening. And I come across that the head of Social Security, who was the acting commissioner that was just appointed before Biden left office, has now departed the Social Security because of a dispute with Elon Musk over our personal data, right? So now with her departing, I don't know what that means in regards to our personal data. Does that mean that he won and he got access? Or did she leave not to give him the access and now, he's got to figure it out? I'm not sure. But the problem that I have is that I'm also aware that our state senator, Kirsten Gillibrand, had penned a letter to her on Friday, which stated that the White Plains office, which I have a lot of family in White Plains, right, was due to close. Now I'm sitting here with you guys, so I didn't read the whole letter, and I'm just kind of like glimpsing through it, and I'm seeing it was due to close and that it already had a backlog of thousands of cases, right? And so the senator was appealing to her, saying, like, what's your plan? We already have over 2,000 cases pending, and those people whose cases are pending have already been waiting 8 months, right? Not to mention who's going to apply tomorrow and the next day and the next day, right? And the fact that you need a field office that people can go to in order to be able to address whatever their needs are, concerns, filing the application, so that people who are not as computer savvy have a physical place to walk into. And remember, Social Security, we are dealing with our elderly, right? So my concern is that was already at risk before she resigned. And the fact that these people who have now taken power are openly expressing their disdain for the diaspora, for people of color specifically, which in White Plains there are a lot, right? And in the letter, she also talks about the other, areas in proximity, Westchester, Poughkeepsie, again, a lot of people from the diaspora, right? So if she's now departed and this regime is anti-Black, are they going to care about this concern that our senator raised on Friday? Now that they are now taking over, we are under attack. This has been a consistent war. It didn't start today. It's been going on for centuries. And in the spirit of what Alvin just said, if we do not care about our brothers and sisters, there's a poem written by a Jewish man that says, first they came for, and nobody spoke for them. And then they came for me, and there was nobody there to speak for me. And I just would like for people to think about that when we're talking about these things, this is why I'm consistently in the spirit of what I am when I'm on this app, because I see how important these things are, and I know when it affects people on the ground, how it can. This to me, I felt emotional reading this because I'm thinking about elderly people that might not eat, that might not be able to pay their bills. You know what I'm saying? So there's something happening right now, and it might be reminiscent. It might be the exact carbon copy just in 2025 of what some of the things that have been done to us, like what happened with Black Wall Street, like what happened with the Trail of Tears, like what happened with the Iran Contra scandal, right? This is just this is the 5, 6, 7, 10.0 of these things. Like, let's look alive. I land my plane.
All right, is it my turn now? Not now.
Yeah, go ahead. It's your go.
All right.
Um,
See, my
yeah, I'm
issue
not skipping nobody.
is Balboa. I think you're a genius. Everybody on this panel, I think y'all are. I enjoyed the conversation. You're very intelligent. I mean, but the reality is, when we really look at our black folks, you know what I mean? There was black people out in this election didn't even think they was in no kind of imminent danger. There was black people out right now caping for this bullshit. And that's why I'm saying, like, you're not gonna get black people to agree. Most of Black America right now either don't know that there's a problem going on because they're not paying attention, or they agree with this bullshit. And that's what. And the thing is how come the difference between now and Rosa Parks? Because a lot of those businesses back in the day, and this is why I told people boycott is not as effective as is not effective today. Yeah, you make the company lose money, but you make everybody in that company lose money, including the DEI or the black or the women or whoever you're trying to protect, because it's an integrated workforce. Like, you know what I'm saying? So that's why a lot of things that we were able to apply in the 60s and be like, well, why don't we don't apply that now? Because of the fact we're integrated. You know what I mean? We always wind up affecting somebody that is connected to us compared to more so in the 60s. They lived segregated. They had their own homes. They weren't getting bank loans. They had their own shops. They were educating themselves. I'm not saying not to go back to that, but until we do go back to that, that's the only way that we would be able to affect them through a boycott. As of now, you're affecting by not going to Walmart, by not going to Target, by not doing these things. You're actually affecting black men and women as well. Yeah, you're affecting, but and then in the same light, say for instance, these black people, they don't have any type of job security at this point in time. So the sales drop, the hours get low. They the first ones out the door. So did you really help by that boycott or did you not? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a very hard place to be in right now in 2025 because we are so integrated into the American workforce. Like, you know what I'm saying? We can't, it's unrealistic to ask black Americans, walk off. That's unrealistic. Like, you know what I mean? Because a lot of black people ain't gonna do that shit. You know what I mean? They're not doing that. They're like, I'm not walking off my fucking job because I ain't got no guarantee on how much I'm gonna pay my shit. Period. Like, you know what I mean? So I don't understand exactly like where a lot of like I dig all the conversation and shit. But at the end of the day, the main thing that I'm concerned about is paying my bills for me, my son, and my wife. You know what I'm saying? And making sure that we solid and that we got food in our mouth. I'm always, as long as I have a job, regardless of what color the person is, I'm doing something for somebody else, making their dream come true. So in my mind, I don't give a fuck about what color you is. Like, you know what I mean? I don't really want to be here no way. I got other shit going on. Like, you know what I mean? Boom. But other than that, starting your own business and progressively taking yourself out of a dependency state in the workforce and, you know what I mean, own your things instead of rent your things and begin to drop the labels that separate you from being black because we don't realize that either. We adopt these labels to separate ourselves from our black because we believe that our black. You know what I mean? That's not, yeah, they might believe it, but ultimately we believe it because we out there adopting different labels. I'm a Hebrew Israelite. I'm not black. I'm part Cherokee. I'm a Muslim. I'm a this. I'm a that. I'm a part of this community. We do that because black has never been good enough by itself here in America, like white has been. Like, you know what I'm saying? And I understand the psyche of it all. And I'm not demonizing people that do it because I understand why you do it. You know what I'm saying? Because our constant gravitation to have acceptance from the people that view us. But we're at the point now in America as black people where a lot of us, we don't accept ourselves. It's not unity. It's not unity that's going to, you know what I mean, make it come together. You know what I'm saying? It's us realizing the preservation for the next black person life is just as important as mine. You know what I mean? We ain't never got to break bread together one day in our lives. But if I'm a brother and I'm on my mission and I'm doing, and I appreciate your life and your existence here, I'm not going to impede on that shit. We as black people, we impede on each fucking other. Like, you know what I'm saying? The thing is that the Mexican man, the Asian man, Indian man, all these people that come to this country, you think that same force ain't on their ass? Yeah, but one of the main things is that they not on each other ass. Like, you know what I'm saying? We be on each other ass. All this guy, that guy. No, we the guys and girls right now. Technology's available, education's available. People talking about, I'm not going to vote because I hate this, I hate that. And you voted against yourself. This election showed me that black America ain't ready for shit, but to keep running their fucking mouth. And that's some honest truth. We didn't even educate ourselves enough. And the thing is, it might say 92% of black women voted, 79%, but that's out of the percentage of registered black voters, which was only about maybe 10% of the actual vote. Like, Balboa got the numbers on that. Why isn't every black American registered to vote? Why? How come not that? Then we try to talk about how we gonna organize and collect and shit. We're not even registered to vote for our best interest. We can't even figure out what that is and what that's about. Like, you know what I'm saying? This is why niggas get left in the dust. I'm all about working with niggas, but I can't work with niggas that I gotta go all the way back in time and bring them up to the present date to know that they need to vote for their best interest because this motherfucker always trying to take your shit. Like, come on, y'all. Like, come on. I mean, is it just me? Like, you know what I'm saying? I know it can't be just me.
No, it's not
Like,
just you. But hold on, because we're gonna go to Lord Messiah because he was waiting patiently.
thank you. I appreciate that.
Peace. Yeah, man. Yeah, those are some real good points y'all made, man. Real good points, man. Yeah, I was just thinking, like in 1945, the United Nations Charter came out, and one of the reasons why they developed a charter was because like this is like toward the ending of the Cold Wars and all of that. You know what I'm saying? And basically, a lot of these nations around the world, especially the European nations, realize like, yo, we got to stop killing each other. Basically, we got to find a diplomatic way to resolve our issues without having to go to war all the time. So they developed these charters and all these international laws and agreements and whatnot to be a form of law to keep them from having to go to war. So one of the things that they implemented was what's called decolonization, and that's what's called C-24. You can look it up. That's dealing with basically decolonization of lands and how people can, through self-determination, liberate themselves in a particular territory. So you got General Assembly resolutions. So, for example, you got General Assembly resolution 2625 that states how a territory 1514 states how a territory can achieve self-governance through A, independence, B, free association, or C, integration. And then the General Assembly Resolution 2625 says that they can also achieve self-governance through D, any freely determined political status and so forth. So basically, those General Assembly resolutions let you know that people have the right to politically establish themselves and find an area that they're going to decolonize. So, for example, the states that we're in, each state can be decolonized one by one. So there's a Latin principle of international law called uti possidetis jurisdiction. Uti possidetis jurisdiction is a principle of international law that serves to preserve the boundaries of colonies emerging as states, requiring them to presumptively inherit their pre-independence boundaries, which means basically it's kind of like you take a plot of land. It's similar to like adverse possession, but on like an international level. So you see a plot of land, or you draw up the borders of the land or the jurisdiction that you're going to administrate these your trust or your form of governance within your determined political status. And through some time, through the acquiescence and the communication with the people, so for example, like a trust territory, you're helping to uplift the political, social, economic, educational, social resources and things of the people in that area, eventually making it independent to the point where you bring it where they no longer need government assistance or any other help from outside forces or outside sources. Then they become independent. So it's going from colonization to decolonization. This process has been in effect since 1945, and over 180 countries have decolonized since then. The African Union was one of the first countries to start this process as well. So, I bring up this information to let y'all know that there are actual ways for people to liberate themselves. You know what I'm saying? And these are international laws that even the people that are under the jurisdiction of a said state have the right to implement these laws, because those said states, like the United States, they're under international law. So when a people determine their right to self-determination and they choose to exercise this, the United States cannot interfere in that process. In fact, they're actually obligated to support it. You see what I'm saying? So, and I mention this to people because we think that we have to use the old methods of how they did things back in the days. Like we think we have to go to war with the white man if we try to get free. We think we have to drop bombs on another country if we're trying to get free. The whole point of the Charter of the United Nations was to end that type of way of doing things and find a more diplomatic way, a political way of doing things. So when the brother said about how like back in the days, the young were more into, protesting and so forth, because they were more politically educated. There was a lot of political education going on, in the 60s and 70s. You had Black Panthers out there, Black Muslims, 5%ers, all kind of people out there that was out there politically organizing. You know what I mean? So like we had that back in the days. A lot of that kind of died down. You know what I mean? So we have to bring that to a resurgence. You know what I mean? But these General Assembly resolution, when my next go around, I'm gonna come back into some more of them. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, these are principles we should look up, man. If I land my plane on this, I'll give y'all, certain things to look up. Uti possidetis jurisdiction, decolonization, self-determination, these type of things. Look into those things. Those are very important principles of international law that we can implement as a people. I yield. Thank you.
I Oh, okay, agnostic. We're gonna go to you. I believe that it's the recording is ready for another break, but with this last like little go round, I'm gonna be ending the live. So if anybody wanna have like their last final thoughts on whatever it is that they want to say on the recording, that would be great. But yeah, I will be ending after this. So we're gonna go to agnostic. We're gonna go to Mr. Kuche, and then if you have anything else
Yeah.
that you want to add to the conversation or final thoughts, it'll be the time is now. All right, go ahead, agnostic.
So, wherever we are right now, one thing we have to keep in mind is the same way we don't tell our children not to give up, and the same way we don't give up on our children, we have to just have the same mentality for our freedom. And right now, it's at stake. Right now, Trump and his goonies are nothing but Russian agents. And Putin is not just trying to kill democracy in America, he's literally doing it worldwide. The EU is getting ready to come together because they see the threat in Ukraine that's gonna affect everyone. They finally decided to step up and be like, you know what? We're gonna keep the peace over here because we already know this dude is trying to, he's just Hitler reincarnated. And I don't believe in reincarnation, but he's basically following his same policies. And the agenda is to kill democracy, not just in America, worldwide. And we have to keep these people. White supremacy never gave up the fight. They never stopped fighting to keep control over, to keep their foot on our necks. We have to have the same attitude. We have to fight for our freedom and continue to the death. I land my plane.
And listen, I'm with it I'm with it agnostic. I'm ready. I feel like ain't the time to play something to show up. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, we can look at many instances why we not together. But to me, the main people that we need to look at in 2025 is ourselves. Like, you know what I mean? And really sit down and run the microscope over ourselves and see exactly, you know what I mean, what's going on with us, because I mean, it's something there. You know what I mean? All the damage. Look, and it's not that nobody's bad for it. You know what I mean? But this is the result of everything that has happened to us as a particular group of people thus far. So that if you're getting all this negative input, you're going to get some bad, output. All right, and we have to really dissolve it and not compare ourselves to people from different eras, because we're a whole different group of people. Because in the same light, we not them blacks that's gonna get sprayed with the water hose either. We finna fuck you up. Like, you know what I'm saying? So we're different in many, many ways. And we have to take those differences and transform it into something powerful. You know what I mean? Number one, educating ourselves and accepting information from ourselves. Even during this political party, talking to another black person that wanted to be cooning, you know what I mean? That shit's impossible. We cooning. We doing a lot of coonery. Like, you know what I mean? We got to check our own coonery. Like, you know what I'm saying? And that's real shit. And I mean, that goes all the way down from committing crimes against people in your community, all the way to sitting there signing with Donald Trump. We make all this differentials between coonery. Not all that shit is coonery. Like, you know what I'm saying? And we got to evaluate ourselves. That's where I'm at. I hold a lot of this that's going on with us right now, especially with Donald Trump. This shit black people fault, Latin people fault, like women fault. Like no, people wasn't believing him, but them supremacy people go out and vote. They do what they gotta do. Like, you know what I mean? So I'm gonna learn with that right
there. Yeah. If I could say, I was gonna say also too from before, as far as economics, right? Because I was on another panel we was building on something similar as well, and I was trying to say how as far as mom and pop stores, open up a little, clothing line, a little something going on. Yeah, any week we can do that. We've been doing that. But when it comes to getting into the big industry of things, so for example, when you want to turn that mom and pop store into a supermarket, a chain, store and all of that, now you want a big venue and all of that. Now you got to deal with the people in the upper echelon. You got to deal with the economics of and politics of international dealings. So the reason why I keep emphasizing statehood and how statehood is imperative as well also too. Now the thing is that as long as we remain, the slaves of America, the consumers of America, the niggas that ain't going nowhere, ain't doing nothing, but just gonna keep buying, they don't got no problem with that. They gonna let you stay in that status and stay there comfortable. They don't have no problem with that. But as far as us coming up and really getting into the big market and just using, minus the other stuff, not getting into that, but just using Puffy as an example, how he was talking about how with the Ciroc and all of that, he tried to work with these other people of different cultures, help them with their diversity problem and all of that. But then when he wanted to become an equal partner and, do his own thing and get his own brand, they started hating on him. So the same way when the black woman wants to, expand her nail shop and start getting on a bigger level, the Koreans is not going to let her get the nails and the hair and the this and that, and the Indians ain't going to let you get the hair and the weaves and all of that because they control that market. So we're going to still have to deal with the discrimination on an international level. And also too, without us having a national status, it's even harder to deal. This is why it's hard for other nations to deal with us around the world, because we lack a political status. We are subjects to somebody else's government. So when other nations look at us from around the world, they're like, yo, we fuck with black people. We like them culturally. We see what they do and their potential and everything they about, but they don't have the political status where we could freely associate with them. We have to ask the white man in America, can we do business with your black slaves that's under your jurisdiction? Because they don't have their own nationality to just deal with us by themselves. We got to ask you. See what I'm saying? So this is why we can't even deal with international affairs, because we don't have our own actual national status, which is a state. So it's imperative that we have that. Otherwise, we'll be stuck within the confines of mom and pop stores and doing little business. It's gonna be like that. I yield. Thank you.
No problem. Beautifully said. Go ahead, God Energy. Final words?
It was on Balboa before me.
I'm sorry, Val. Did I skip
No
you?
worries.
Yes, I did. My bad, Val.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly say, and it's a little bit of a segue from what we just heard from Lord. There was a reading that I did, I think, from the Brookings Institute that talked about in 1997, a Gallup poll was done that charted the decline of Black optimism since the 80s, right? And again, we know what happened in the 80s, right? But have we resumed our optimism is the question. I would argue no, right? And I think that there's an optimism that has existed amongst Black people that led to a level of wanting to be invincible, right? That despite all of the things that are levied against us, that there's always possibility and that we're going to shift at all times for that purpose, right? And I feel like some of us in this time have bought into the pessimism that has opened the door to evil and our opposition. I want to repeat that there's a pessimism that exists amongst us that has opened the door to our enemy. And I think we need to do the work of rebuilding that optimistic state of mind that says to us that we are ever capable to always save ourselves. I land my plane.
Right.
So beautifully said. So beautifully said. I completely agree. Our people have become extremely pessimistic at this time where we have the most rights, liberties, freedoms, access to wealth. Our people are the most pessimistic. Our people are the most disheartened. Our people are the most disunified. And that is amazingly paradoxical, frustrating, right? I'm so glad that she pointed that out. And I think the second part to where we need to lead to is some sort of national identity, like Lord Messiah said. I do feel like to undo slavery, I feel like the goal is to get back to a state that we were in before we were in slavery. I feel like we are trying to undo colonialism. Could you mute up real quick? You got some things going on in your background, Box One. Yes, I feel like the goal, right? We are to decolonize ourselves, but undo as much as we can that came with our oppression. We should be headed towards the state we were in before slavery. Well, we had nationalities and nation states before slavery. And I feel like that is the ultimate goal here. And I feel like what distracts us from seeing that aspect of nationality and what adds to our people being pessimistic is the easy out of feeling integrated with white people, right? The fact that you can sit next to these people at the bar and they don't spit on you anymore. Let me finish my statement. Let me finish my statement. The fact that we can sit next to these people at the bar and restaurants and they don't spit on us and punch us and pour drinks anymore. And this part right here is what I feel is the most thing. Free access to intercourse with these peoples. It is the white genitalia that is making our people pessimistic with the black community, saying, why choose the struggle when I can find comfort and solace in the genitalia of a white person? Why try to look back to a nation state and go through with that when I can integrate into America and find comfort and solace in the genitalia of a white person? So I do feel like our racial politics is something that we really need to address primarily in the black state of mind. And I'm going to land my plane with this. After this conversation, I just had a great realization. Something is now being brought to the forefront after this conversation, because I, like others, when I say the term Black Americans, for some reason, I always only think of North America, as if Sudamerica es no America, but it is. So when we say Black Americans need to unite, I think also we need to make it imperative to cross these borders and unite with Black Americans south of the border, because Sudamerica es America. Viva la revolución, and shout out to the Blactinas, the Afro-Latinas that have been up here holding it down on the front line, speaking with authority, bringing the facts more than these coward motherfuckers up here in North America. So I want to shout them out, and I want to put it out to my brothers and sisters in North America that we are forgetting that we got soldiers on the front line south of the border that are going through racial oppression. They are our cousins. We have the same ancestors. They're not our cousins. They are our brothers and sisters. And once we unite and form like Voltron, then the oppressor is really going to be shaking in their boots. Peace, y'all.
Who's next?
I completely love that. Hand claps to you, brother. I don't know if anybody else had anything else that they wanted to add to the conversation, or just had any final thoughts before we ended the live.
I just quickly wanted to say thank you, host. Thank you, Issa Queen, for putting together another great conversation, another important conversation, and, you know, in the spirit of progress. So grateful.
Mommy, you scared? Thank you. I appreciate you always, always. You know, I'm the great facilitator. I like to facilitate these kind of conversations because I think they're important. And you
And
know,
one more thing.
I really respect all of y'all on this panel. Go ahead, hon.
One more thing. Que viva Mama Africa. May Mama Africa always,
Absolutely.
That's right.
always
Ashe,
represent.
Absolutely.
I wanted to add on to God Energy, which was built on about the melanated people in South and Central America. When I be building on the Montevideo Convention on the Rights and Duties of States, the Article 1 in there that basically states how, you know, the 4 elements of forming a state is your permanent population, your defined territory, your government, and the capacity to enter into relations with other states. There were 16 nations that ratified or signed on to that convention, and most of those nations are like Chile, Brazil, Nicaragua, Panama, Cuba, like melanated brothers and sisters in the South and Central region. You know what I'm saying? So United States of America signed on to it too. So, you know, if people want to know if Massa signed on, it's okay. But yeah, but those are melanated people that signed on to that. So when I be talking about international law, people thinking it's white people in Europe. No, man, these are melanated people that all signed on this convention of statehood. So by us adding on to that as well, we can unify with our brothers internationally through that convention, forming a state through that convention, the Montevideo Convention on the Rights and Duties of States. You know what I mean? So that's how we can literally branch with them. You know what I'm saying? And then we have the political status and the national status to actually do so. You know what I mean? Without the permission of the U.S.
Yes, sir.
And we have all.
Yes, sir.
You know?
Any last words for
That's
anybody
awesome.
else? That was beautifully said, Lord Messiah. I appreciate you coming through with all
Yeah.
of the civics conversation. Um, this who was that?
International law, part of
Yeah.
international law, and that's
Yeah.
international law. That's what we
Yeah.
No,
got to
I'm
study.
I,
just
I,
saying
International law,
in
y'all.
No, I was just saying in
I,
general. Like you did come through and come through with the civics, so I do appreciate you for that. Um, but the international law as well. Who was that? Who was trying to speak?
yeah. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead, huh?
Yeah. I, I just wanted us as all black people, African, like South America, North, like all black people in general. Our brother, Lord Messiah, he talked about international law. You understand what I'm saying? So, someone, I want us as human beings, realistically, when we talk about other countries and what they do to us, we should also put ourselves in their shoes. So, in the case of, I think, sister or brother mentioned the Ukraine issue. I'm sure if you were Russian, former colony of the Soviet Union. Can you hear me? Hello.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
we hear you, bro.
Yeah, we hear you.
So when Ukraine, that used to be a former colony of the Soviet Union, wants to join NATO, I think um any country who has who's their sovereign state would see that as a matter of, national security. So obviously they
Mm.
didn't want that to happen. And Trump calling for ceasefire to that uh, issue was because America was funding unnecessary taxpayers' dollars to Ukraine, which wasn't really yielding any results because obviously Russia had more firepower, even if the US gave Ukraine weapons that American citizens, soldiers could not use on Russia because that would be an act of war. Secondly, as Black people, like our brother, I think, God Energy said, oh, and Lord Messiah said about international law as well, about returning back to how how we were before slavery. I totally agree with that. But at the same time, you are most of y'all are American citizens, so you all have to build where you are. And naturally, when a Black person is given birth to in America, he's always thinking about his survival first, his family's survival and development first before any other thing comes into play. Uh, yeah, and religion is not logic, and should be used as a tool in unity. Unity should come from through Pan Africanism. And yeah, that's what I have to really say about our discussion so far. Thank you.
So, brother, on that note, real fast, I would say, when I would speak about the General Assembly resolution that speaks about how to have self-governance in the territory through independence, free association, or integration, I would say, well, Martin Luther King, he tried integration. We see how that worked out. And like the brother said earlier, integration, that kind of messed us up because before that, we were more self-sufficient, doing things for ourselves before that. You know what I mean? Now we're kind of like, integrated. Now we feel like, we could get along with these people and, live with them and da-da-da, instead of being amongst ourselves and doing our own thing. So I think like I think we would have to start off. Well, I know we would have to start off with a free association, meaning we could form a sovereign state that is within the United States, like kind of like how the Indians got with reservations and all of that. But eventually work from free association up into independence. So, like I said, we already know integration. We already tried that. Martin Luther King tried that. So we're gonna go from what Malcolm X was actually trying to do, which was, or El Hajj Malik El Shabazz. He was going to the United Nations dealing with nationality, and he was also building with African nations to link with brothers over there in the mother country to bring a political independence to us over here in the States. You know what I'm saying? So he was basically trying to deal with a free association with the African nations. You know what I mean? To get us into a point of eventual independence. So we go from integration to free association to independence. That's the final goal, independence, y'all.
Free,
Yes.
free independence as Americans.
Right, because we don't got the resources or
Absolutely.
political power at this point to
Yeah,
be independent. So we will have to deal in a free association until we get to the point of independence.
yeah,
Yeah, I
because
absolutely. I
I
hold on, honey.
truly,
Hold on, honey. Hold on. No, I just wanted to say really quickly, like I absolutely agree because whatever's going to happen is going to have to be a build, and I think that a lot of the time when we're thinking about the liberation of Black people, where people are thinking about it in like an instant noodles kind of way, and they don't
Right.
necessarily realize that it is a build, a relay race where one generation is taking up the mantle after the next until we get to where we want to see happening,
That,
right? But I don't want to start a new dialogue about that. I do want to end the live because I know that this recording is going to be summed up and I don't want it to get cut off. But Bao, we're gonna go to you. Uh, Box one, you didn't get to say anything to end it off. God Energy didn't. No, God Energy did speak, unless you want to. And Rep didn't get anything to say to end it off. If you want to as well. Um,
So I'm glad I had the
go ahead,
opportunity to
Val.
say this. One is y'all need to stop talking ill on Martin Luther King's name. We cannot act as if there weren't real issues, real threats, actual harm and death that were upon the people here from the diaspora that he was speaking to in the things that he pushed for, right? Now, it so happens that the things that he pushed for had to do with this collective experience on amongst the populace of the United States of America, right? But like for instance, like integrating the lunch counter was about the fact that people were being brutalized just because they were trying to get a sandwich. So it's not that we were not in those spaces, right? It's not like he went and created something new. We were in those spaces and we were being mistreated in those spaces. We were being mistreated trying to get an education. We were being mistreated just for walking down the street. In the same way, we still continue to have some of those experiences, right? And I feel like what he was trying to lay down was a respect for our humanity so that that wouldn't be the case. And in fact, there were laws that were passed that made that the case in the sense of like the Green Book for Negro Travelers became obsolete because that was became a law, right? That you couldn't discriminate against people in those spaces. You couldn't mistreat them. You couldn't subject them to hate. You couldn't subject them to harm in the public sphere. So I just want to say that. But also, Roland Martin just did a segment that was about withdrawing from the Black Bank of Justice. And someone just said it. I don't remember who just said it in the conversation, but it was just talking about, like, I think it was Issa that was talking about, like, there's a continuation of the fight for justice that always has to be happening, right? And I feel like in that pessimism that I was talking about earlier, some of what that includes is this feeling of like, oh, well, you wasn't taken care of, right? But did you do the work that all those other people had been doing all along to fight the fight so that you could stand and sit on the shoulders of that experience and not have to experience some of that harm that existed? And so what's happening is that Black Bank of Justice is becoming bankrupt because not enough people are making deposits. And until we begin to make those same types of deposits on the level that they were, we're going to experience that pessimism. I land my plane.
I don't know if Rep is still here, but Boss One, do you want to put any ending notes on the conversation? And again, I want to thank y'all for coming out and really putting your opinions and, you know, perspectives and all of these to the forefront. And it isn't easy. And I appreciate all of them. I really do. Box One? Okay. And Rep. Amazing. That's what I like to hear. So, with that being said, we've been on this broadcast for about 3.5 hours. It was an amazing, amazing conversation. And I really want to have more of them. So, again, please follow Duel Concepts on my YouTube channel. It's thequeen.com, where we have all of these videos and things that we're going on and I got going on in the future, things I got going on right now. And also, you know, if you ever want to do any builds, if you have any suggestions for conversations that you want to have, of course, I'm open to have those kind of conversations. With that being said, you know, you ain't gotta go home, but I'm ending this live. Does anybody want to take it, or I could just, you know, close it out? I'm gonna take that as another. I'm gonna close it out.
That,
Yeah, have a good night, y'all.